Tip today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning and welcome to this Friday's Tip Today with me, Donal Doyle, sitting in for Fran again today. It is the 17th of April. We're halfway through the month and heading towards summer, but it's been a bit of a busy week. Coming up on this morning's show, we'll have Johnny Luby to join us in a few moments to get his take on the week that was. Then we'll be getting maybe an alternative take from Ireland editor with the Irish Independent Fionnan Sheahan. The Thurles man will give us a rundown on his view of what's been happening in a fairly turbulent week in Irish politics. Pat Mullaly and Collette Roche from Fianna Fail will both be on to give us their insight on some of that uproar in Fianna Fail and our three youngest TDs with their shock statement, including Ryan O'Mara, the North Tipp TD from here in Nina. Well, not from Nina, but yes, you know what I mean. Noel Madden will be on with some good news, and our psychotherapist, Joannes Berkley, will be here. We will, of course, as it's Friday, have our panel on to unpack the hot topics of the week. But first this morning, before we go any further, Larry O'Keefe's Furniture is giving away a €250 voucher to celebrate their huge sale. There's big savings across all departments there. To enter, you just need to text Larry O'Keefe's to 083 311 3311. Our final finalist of the week will be chosen in the first hour of the show, and then we will have our draw for the winner just before the panel. So don't miss your chance to grab huge deductions across all departments, living room, bedroom, dining and more, with unbeatable offers and savings galore. It's the perfect time to transform your home. Now, on to the week that was. We have Johnny Luby with us now. Johnny, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Donal. How are you keeping?
I'm not too bad, Johnny. How have you been getting on this week?
Not too bad, I see you're in the hot seat now.
The hot seat again, yeah, hot for a change here in the Nina studios. So, we'll manage.
Yeah, I was, I'm on there for a long number of years there, but I don't think I ever spoke to you. I don't even think I'd even know you to see you.
Well, do you know what? I met you very briefly once, but there was a lot of people around at the Best of Tipp Awards a couple of years ago. And sure, you were on with me the last time I was sitting here in the hot seat for Fran.
My God, it was nice. My memory must be fading.
I obviously didn't make much of an impression, Johnny.
Well, I'll tell you, Donald, you have a lovely voice for radio. And
a face for it as well, they say.
Yeah, you're easy to listen to. But anyway, you had a tough week to cover all the things that were going on across the Ireland and indeed across the world. But anyway, fair play to you. You got through it, and that's easy.
It's been busy since Easter, all right. I'll admit that much, certainly. So where do you want to start with the week, Johnny?
So I suppose we'll probably start on those sport there with Tipperary winning the senior football. Fair play to them. You know, it's hard for them to go down to Waterford. Waterford had a bit of a do over them there for a couple of years, but they got back on track and looked up playing Cork now. That's the prize for the winners, and they're going to find it very hard, according to their coach as well. It's going to be a tough game, but you need the tough games and see where you stand in that. They weren't too far away from getting out of Division 4. It was just consistency and youngsters as well that needed the experience of playing in the senior football. He brought on a good few youngsters. So, as I often said, with the likes of Clonmel, CBS and the Abbey in Tiptown and that big into the football, like there will be youngsters coming through, and hopefully he can put his hands on a couple of them and see where do we stand. You know, it's going to be a tough one against Cork. That's on in a couple of weeks' time.
Cork are coming up again. They did well in the league, and Munster football needs a strong Cork. Even as a Kerry man, I'd say
definitely. That. Yeah, and I'll tell you, Donald, I would think that Cork will give Kerry tucks of it as well. They always seem to rise to the occasion, and but I often wonder, we'll say, with the likes of the Ulster Championship and the Leinster Championship in football, now I'm talking about that, the winners of the Championship, they don't go any place. Whereas in the hurling, if you win a Leinster or you win a Munster, you're into a semi-final. But there's no prize for winning the provincial championships in football, which is a kind of disappointing. But I thought they might have worked it in some place along the line. But alas, they haven't, and that's the way it goes. Tonight, of course, Donald, we have the minor hurling there, Tipp against Cork below in Semple Stadium. I think that game is on at 6:30, and it's more than likely, certainly, to be on Tipp FM. There we have a couple of youngsters there from West Tipperary, which is brilliant for hurling because Babs Keaton came back this way in the 80s and he picked up Nicky English and Pat Fox and the Bonners and Declan Ryan and Joe Hayes and John Kennedy and many, many more, wonderful players. Mm-hmm. And that's so. Tonight we have from Golden, we have young Finn playing at centre back, grand young boy with school in Golden, and that he plays centre back tonight. We have young Collins from Galty Rovers, or Bench as we call it, but he's Galty Rovers. He's the captain. He plays cornerback, a son of Michael's who played hurling and football and soccer and indeed a bit of rugby with Kilfeacle back in the day. So the best of luck to them. You have a young Ryan from Arabelle Rovers, and you have Donoghue from Cashel and young Kennedy from Clonoulty Rossmore. So the West is fairly well represented along with the South. We'll always have strong hurling in Mid-Tipperary and North Tipperary, but it is grand that the coaches are able to put their hands on players there from the divisions like West Tipperary and South Tipperary. The very best of luck to them tonight. In the senior hurling, of course, as All-Ireland champions, and I keep saying it whether I'm out abroad on holidays in Portugal or wherever I am, I'd always say to the Cork Limerick lads, we're still the All-Ireland champions until the middle of July. And that's the way.
This is a big one on Sunday though, Johnny, isn't it? Is it a revenge match, do you think?
Well, it's possibly for Cork. Cork would like to drive in the nails, and that they don't ever seem to take it easy. The Cork performance against Limerick in the league final would certainly give us a chance. Cork have tremendous pace all over the place, especially in the forwards. Now, our backs could be in a spot of bother, but our forwards are quite good as well. And Liam Cahill would be talking all the time about the dry side, and that so hopefully they'll be able to show that their first touch is brilliant. I don't know how Cork are 4 to 6 favourites. The bookmakers have them, and to me it is possibly maybe Cork should be 4 to 5 and Tipperary 5 to 4. Instead of that, you can nearly get 7 to 4 about Tipperary. Tipperary, the team will be announced later on. Leanne was telling me they're around 10:30, I think, this morning. So hopefully the players are in a good place, and I'd say Cal and his mentors have done a huge job with them there since last November. Indeed, their training has been, from what I gather, phenomenal. The same as all the other counties. I mean, whatever Tipperary are doing, Cork, Clare, Waterford and Limerick are all doing the very same team. The Munster Provincial Championship is worth in total the guts of 8 million, I read someplace, to the GA. So, it's something that will never be done away with, because the Munster Championship, whilst I suppose last year we finished third and went on to win the All-Ireland. We got a grand run in, and that's so. On all known form to date, Limerick are certainly entitled to be the favourites, and that I'd be very much afraid of Clare myself. I mean, they have their boys back. They beat Dublin handy enough in the league final. They hadn't Kelly on. They took off Shane O'Donnell, and they're wonderful players. It's going to have to beat Clare no matter who's playing them. And as it so happens, Waterford is playing them on Sunday, and Clare are dog tough, and they love playing Limerick. Whatever kind of a graw they have for their neighbours, they like to put manners on.
We all love playing our neighbours, don't we?
And of course, where Tipperary is, Fran or Donald, we're surrounded by our neighbours: Waterford, Cork, Limerick, and Clare. Mm-hmm. So we're surrounded by them, and of course they all love to put manners on Tipperary. If you listen to Donald Cusick, he said they rise very quick and they disappear very quick. I mean, like that. Tipperary don't take that bait, he just thrown it out there. He's entitled to his opinion, the same as all of us are. I think it will be a wonderful game in Thurles. I would give Tipperary a huge chance, and I suppose at the end of the day what Liam Cahill needs to see is a performance. If he gets the performance, anything could happen, and look, the best of luck to all the lads.
Both sides would be desperate for a win, but it wouldn't mean they're out of the running if they lose it.
That's right, yeah. You see, that's it. And it could come down to score differences and all that, Kip. So it's very important that we'd hang in there. Hopefully we have a full team to pick from and the panel of players. So it's absolutely
we'll get an update on the team later
know.
from Paul, hopefully.
Yeah, and Donald, of course, with the Camogie.
Double header on Sunday, yeah.
That's right, Jay. It's absolutely fantastic for the girls to play in front of a huge crowd, and that Tipperary are coming along nicely. If one looks at the performance that Waterford put up in the All-Ireland, in the league final, where they were very gritty and that, and I understand that they didn't have their full complement of players available to them when they played Tipperary, and Tipperary won rather easily. But Tipperary are coming along nicely, and the very best of luck to them on Sunday. That game is on at 2 o'clock as well. The senior hurling game is on at 4 o'clock, so go early and have your seat and enjoy the wonderful sport that is the GA hurling and football and camogie.
Yeah, and we've had warnings from the Gardaí. They're expecting big crowds, so leave extra time. There are roadworks, people to watch out for the Latera Bends roadworks, and in Thurles around Semple Stadium as well. So just get there early is the best advice.
Best advice, yeah. And of course, Limerick are out then. The other county that's free this weekend, and that's I think they're out the following weekend. I don't know who they actually play, but anyway, it's this week we're talking about, and to go and see the blue and gold. And the under-20s are looked after winning their 2 games. They're there or thereabouts, and the very best of luck to them as well. In the rugby, of course, Donald, Munster aren't going that hectic. We need a top 8, and there's between, I think they're number 6 at the moment, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10.
Yeah, Connacht are breathing down Munster's neck, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, have no doubt about it. And we're just not going well at the moment for whatever reason. On the club scene, of course, Cashel finished fairly strong from a disappointing opening, and that they lost a few matches that they could have won and been there or thereabouts. Shannon beat them last weekend, but Cashel still put up a good performance, and they'd be happy enough with their season to finish mid-table. Nina, I suppose, found the going very tough in 1A.
It's tough at the top, isn't it?
Oh, it is tough at the bloody top, you can have no doubt about it. And the real top clubs that have been there, they seem to be able to get their hands on academy players and things like that, whereas the likes of Nina Ormond have to survive themselves, you know. But for Clonmel, it's a huge day tomorrow as well. They're in the Division 3.
They're playoff,
playoff, against Dolphin. They're looking for a huge crowd to come and support them tomorrow. It should be a wonderful day in Clonmel Rugby Club. The very best of luck to them. To be grand to see them going up to the next step in the rugby. They have a fine team, fair play to them. I think their game goes ahead at Ardgiha around 2:30 tomorrow, please God, when they take on Dolphin, who possibly have the better of the exchanges there in the last couple of years. But nevertheless, Clonmel will put up a battling quality, and I've no doubt there'll be a rip-roaring crowd there for what should be a wonderful day as well. Kilfeacle, actually, my own club, they're in the quarter-final of the Munster Junior Cup. There are 7 other teams left, but the 7 of them are senior clubs. So Kilfeacle are the last remaining team. They've had a wonderful season, winning the Munster Junior A and also winning the Gary Owen Cup, and during the final of the Munster Challenge Cup against Bandon, and now during the quarter final of the Munster Junior Cup. It's hard for the likes of Kilfeacle to advance in the Junior Cup, because Donald, you can play 5 or 6 games with your senior club and still be eligible for the Junior Cup competition, which to me doesn't appear to be right. Because if you play 1 minute in senior club hurling with Nina Rogue, and you're brought in last minute, and you're not good enough then to get your place for the rest of the season, you can't come back and play intermediate or junior. That's the one thing I will say about the GA. They should be able to do something in the even in the GA, that maybe if you come on in the second half, they have all the modern technology there and the whole lot, and you play, you only come on for 2 minutes, that you should be eligible to play. Otherwise, Donald, you won't get a game of hurling for the rest of the season.
That's tough on the player, yeah.
That's my take on the whole bloody thing. But anyway, in horse racing, the first thing I want to say is Ballinrobe is off today. The race is up in Ballinrobe. They're off because I presumed he's probably of the wet conditions and that. But sorry, a chap rang me from England, Chris Tilley, who was tuned in this morning from London. He used to work in Windsor Castle or supposedly he did work in Windsor Castle, and he texted me this morning to say Ballinrobe is off. So Willie Mullins, of course, went to the Grand National last weekend with a horse called I'm Maximus for JP. So heartiest congratulations to him and Paul Townend. And JP also had the second and the fourth. He loves, like Limerick Hollows, he loves winning, and who doesn't like winning, isn't that it?
Yeah. I believe there was a big homecoming. It's almost annual now down in Carlow last night. Was it last night?
That's right, it was absolutely brilliant. Television cameras were there and that, and look, Willie Mullins is guided. When they asked him, was this your best win ever? Look, he said, you win, he said, and that is up to other people to say, was it brilliant or whatever the case may be. But in the Greyhound game, of course, the Conan Annie Kirby, I hear it advertised there on Tipp FM, Memorial is on tomorrow night in Limerick. It's possibly the richest juvenile race in the world. Conan Annie Kirby would have been the father and mother-in-law of J.P. McManus, of course, Noreen's dad and mum. They sponsored this race. It's 72 dog stakes. There's 72 clubs, or the senior, intermediate, junior, camogie clubs, or whatever, or handball clubs, and they get a chance to go out and sell tickets. And I think the winner of the Conan Annie Kirby tomorrow night could be worth maybe 10 or 15,000 to that GA club. So it's a fantastic incentive to go out and do it. They'll have a huge crowd in Limerick tomorrow night, and the best of luck to them. Now, I was in Alvor there for a couple of days in Portugal. The sun was shining. Donal, I hate to drive you bloody bananas, but it was up maybe in the 26 or 27. I had to come in out.
I'm sure it was something like that here as well. I'm positive.
Yeah, there was two lovely ladies there from Kilwan McDonough's, Claire and Marion O'Mara's. They're wonderful. They've been in Alvor in the Leinster House working there for a couple of years, and that are giving a handout to Gus, who owns the Leinster House. And Marion had her 70th birthday. There was a huge contingent there from North Tipperary, so they had a wonderful night there, and heartiest congratulations to her, and may she see many, many more birthdays. I suppose the thing that hit us there when we came back and we put on the news and that, and even as late as just the evening, the aviation fuel is supposedly running short. They've only the middle of May.
6 weeks, I believe, they've left if things don't improve.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. That's why I said I'd get out while there was a drop of fuel.
While the going is good.
On the plane. Now, I did try to smuggle back 5 gallons of diesel, but they wouldn't allow me to bring it back on board.
They still have the liquid restrictions then, do they?
Yeah, listen, the bloody devils, they took my Fixodent, for the false teeth.
Right.
Jesus Christ,
they
above, I said to him,
was it over the 100 mil?
Yeah, I said, is it joking me, where? He said, no. He said, you've too much. I said, hold on 1 second. He said, what's it for? I said, hold on, I took out my false teeth. Oh, he said, work away. He said, he couldn't be looking at bloody false teeth at that hour in the morning.
That's fair enough.
Anyway, the government was in turmoil while I was gone. And I remember a good few years ago, Fran, when Liam Cahill was, maybe I'm going back 10 or 12 years ago, and that I asked him to know, would he come to Kilfeacle Rugby Club, because there was a summer camp there. They're doing hurling, football, camogie, soccer, rounders, you name it. And he said, I'll be able to come tomorrow at 12:30. And he came and he sat all the youngsters down on the bank and spoke away to them. And then he said, what's the most important thing I've said today? And this young fella puts up his hand, and I said, Mother of God, what's he going to say? And the young fella was only about 8. He said, the word listen. And Liam Cahill said, you're spot on. Now, did our government listen? We have advisors to me. You'd wonder what they're doing, that likes of the Minister for Defence, Jim O'Callaghan, and even the Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, and them. They didn't listen to what's going on, and they don't listen to what's going on. And if you don't listen, then it will end up the way it ended up then, with protests and all of that. They weren't getting their message across, and I just wonder, what do the people that are supposed to be their advisors on 150 or 200,000 a year, and that they couldn't advise them to deal with this in the proper way? I think it's an absolute scandal that it went to that. And when Big Jim said, oh, we'll bring in the army, listen, this was Ireland, not outside in Iran or Iraq or the Ukraine or whatever it is. Bring in the army for what? He was trying to frighten the life out of a lot of the lads, and they don't take it. Lads and lassies and the whole lot. It was actually the whole thing was handled wrong. That is my opinion. And then
the reason the army were needed, Johnny, was because the guards have no way of lifting the heavy machinery out of the way if it came to that. It's only the army that would have been able to tow the trucks. So that was the threat, that if you're not going to move the tractors, we'll need the army to do it.
But then Big Jim did say as well along the way that if the trucks were damaged, it would be the fault
your
of
own
the owner.
fault. Yeah.
Now, that's okay to say that, but I was involved in transport for a long number of years, and I know one thing from the law, that if you hit a parked car, no matter where it is parked, you are wrong. Did you know that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the point I'm making
coming
is
forward is always at fault.
Yeah, if you moved lorries and tractors that are parked up, and if you damage them, how could the owner be responsible to somebody else was lifting them and moving them? But anyway, that's for.
I guess the point he was making was that they were illegally parked. So.
Yeah, but hey, listen to me. Anyway, I want to say hello to Mark Maher. He's a garage owner there in Bench, and I see. For the last 3 weeks before I left to go on a few days away, he was going around in boxer shorts, if you don't mind.
Boxer shorts?
The weather was grand. And when I came back, when I went up yesterday in Sir Roland's, Mark was sitting at the counter with long johns and a long breeches on. So the weather has certainly changed. But anyway, I want to extend sincerest sympathies to the people who died whilst I was away and that, and to their families and that, but especially to the Hoare family in Cashel on the death of Paddy Hoare. There was a grand article about Paddy on the Nationalist. I had met Paddy umpteen times. I suppose I'd known him for 55 years. He worked on the council and in the fire brigade, involved with Cashel King Cormac's and Cashel Soccer Club. Indeed, he'd go up and see the rugby lads playing. One of the nicest people that you would meet in a day's travel, as indeed the Hoare family are. And regretfully, I was abroad. I wasn't able to get to the funeral, but he was also big into the Cashel Handball Club with John and Pat O'Donoghue and those lads, and our sympathies and thoughts are with the Carey family. And of course, we also have with the Hoare family. Then we have the death of Albert Carey, a wonderful guy in the town of Cashel, fond of history, knowledge, and everything else. A great man to recite poetry and everything else. He used to recite a poem, "The Train Was Leaving Gold's Cross," and I was in at his brother's Ger Carey in funeral in Tipp town there maybe a couple of months ago, and just when I coming out the door, I just said to Albert, I whispered to him, but obviously they heard it. I just said, "Did that train leave Gold's Cross?" Yes. And Albert started laughing. He said, and everybody else does. But anyway, Dan or Donald, to finish up, wasn't I in a shop yesterday and I was getting a few things and there was a big queue and somebody said to me, "You can go over to that machine over there and scan it." I said, "What do you mean scan it?" "That you can just turn the carton of milk, we say, upside down with all them bears and all that thing and you can scan it." I said, "And how do I pay for it?" "You can pay for it on your phone." Jesus, I said, "I have this phone." I said, 30 years, I can't pay for anything on this phone." He said, "Joke me, you are." But anyway, it was Bernie Dermody put me on the right track. But wasn't she was a lovely girl then as well? And I said, "Mother of God above tonight." And she said, this girl said to Bernie Dermody, she said, "Is that Johnny Luby?" And Bernie said, "It is, yeah." She said, "I need to get my photo." I said, "Listen, no photos. I don't get any photos taken." I said, "Because I'm actually not supposed to be here at all." I said, "I didn't even tell my missus where I was going." Anyway, Donald.
So it's evidence, Johnny. You don't want the evidence.
Is right.
All right. On that note, I'll tell nobody I was talking to you, okay?
Yeah, confidential. Are you hitting for Thurles on Sunday?
I will be around Thurles, but I don't think I'll be at the match, but we'll see.
Right, Donald. Hey, listen, the best of luck to all the lads. And just enjoy the games, lads. Enjoy yourselves and mind yourselves on the road, because with all the traffic around, lads, and there is parking, I believe, in all over the places, even in the golf club in Thurles. They're doing food and that kind of thing. And fair play to them. You can park there. I should probably did a quarter an hour walk in. So look, the best of luck to everybody that's going and to Prairie Hollow.
And to Tipp, yeah, of course. All right, Johnny, thank you very much. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks,
Good man. Slán.
Thanks.
Slán. Okay, we'll be back after these.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, welcome back to our Nina studios for Tip Today with Donal in for Fran. Johnny Luby there mentioned the government and the issues over the recent week or two, and we're going to talk more and delve a little more into that now with Fionnan Sheahan, the Thurles man who is, of course, the Ireland editor of the Irish Independent. Good morning, Fionnan. How are you? Busy few weeks?
Good morning, Donal. And this week was, it was, I suppose, dramatic from a parliamentary perspective, where the previous week was dramatic from a protest perspective. And at the end of the week, we're still kind of in that state of flux of, where does it go from here? It doesn't seem to be all over. There's still a lot of fallout from the events of that week after Easter.
Yeah, it does seem, just going by the papers in the news this morning, that the thought is that the heave isn't going to happen against Micheál Martin in Fianna Fail. All the main contenders seem to have come out and backed him in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, well, you like, over the years, if you look at the history of heaves in Fianna Fail and Fine Gael as well, it is reliant upon somebody very senior kind of stepping up and saying, no, I'm not happy for a heave to have any credibility. It can kind of start on the backbenches, but ultimately it needs the big guns rowing in behind us, and that's a big risk, because if the numbers aren't there, or if you fail, then you're sacrificing your own place in the party hierarchy. So for a cabinet minister to step forward, it would basically mean they would have to resign and then hope that the heave succeeds and that they then become the leader. So it's a big double gamble that they would have to take, and the risks attached to it are quite severe. So,
was there any evidence, Fionnan, that anyone was actually, or had anybody ringing around to see if there was support for it, or was everyone just sitting back and watching?
No, there are certainly suggestions that there were backbenchers trying to assess was the lie of the land. Would anybody step up? And they weren't really getting an answer back. And look, this has happened in the past as well. I can recall during the Brian Cowan era that people were looking to Brian Lenihan to step up to Brian Lenihan at the time, and they thought that once a kind of a signal flare went up of discontent, that he would make a move, and that those were the indications they were getting back. So sometimes, party backbenchers can get a sympathetic ear and a shoulder to cry on, but kind of a bit of agreement that things aren't great. But it's another step on then to have somebody actually turn around and go, yeah, and I'm going to do something about it. If you're on the party backbenches, it's less of a risk. You obviously. There's the threat of upsetting either your own supporters or the party leadership as a result of you speaking out, but there's no major consequences that could be exacted against you if it's basically the case that, look, the Taoiseach has picked who his ministers are over the coming period, and you're not going to be in that frame anyway.
Okay, and why? And I suppose there are a couple of glaring, obvious reasons, but why isn't anyone interested in maybe stepping up and putting that challenge in?
Well, the official answer is that they have confidence in the Taoiseach. I suppose, look, there's a number of things going on. Maybe they're not convinced that the numbers are there. If they were to step up, that it would simply cause instability, that it would result in them being, ousted from their role, and somebody else would go in instead. And then how does that leave them into the future? But the answer is nobody is making the move, and they're all backing the incumbent. And I suppose if you look over the last couple of years, pretenders to the throne have emerged. We've been in various different scenarios where we've spoken about particular Fianna Fáil ministers as being, he's definitely the next leader, and then something happens 6-12 months later, and suddenly he's not definitely the leader. I think Jim O'Callaghan is the latest one to fall victim.
And those are still the same names we're talking about. Like, I remember a couple of Fianna Fáil councillors telling me it was definitely Darragh O'Brien. Now, this is going back a good few years, that was going to be the next leader. Then Darragh Cleary obviously was seen as contender before he kind of got sidelined. Jack Chambers seemed to be the anointed one for a little while in the party, but without any real experience or CV behind him. And now Jim O'Callaghan has had to bat off the talk several times, and he has been fairly fulsome in his support for Micheál Martin all along.
Yeah, and look, he's waited a long time to get his chance at cabinet. And does he really want to throw it all away by rolling behind a heave that doesn't have the numbers behind it? Because there's no guarantee that even if he makes his move, that other senior figures will make the move. They might quite happy for him to blot his copybook at this stage. So, there's people watching each other, and like we have seen in the past, I mean, ultimately you do need the mathematical formula of having half the TDs behind you. We saw the famous Fine Gael heave of 16 years ago. Despite, a narrow majority of the Fine Gael front bench at the time coming out against Enda Kenny behind the deputy leader of the party, Richard Bruton, that still wasn't enough to carry it. So does Micheál Martin still, it is a very changed party from the one that Micheál Martin took over. A lot of the TDs and councillors are people who have come up through the ranks during his time as leader in the last 15 years, so there would be an affinity or a loyalty there. He's gone out canvassing with these people. Maybe other people on the front bench of the party in ministerial roles don't have that those personal relationships with backbenchers that would actually prompt them to weigh in behind them. So there's all those factors at play. But again, I think, whatever about a heave and a change of leader, we are seeing again that there is a level of dissatisfaction being expressed within Fianna Fáil, and that's why that statement issued by Ryan O'Mara and his two counterparts this week,
two younger colleagues,
younger colleagues. So new young Fianna Fáil TD, in Ryan's case, basically saying, listen, if you read through it, he was basically saying this isn't just about the fuel protest. The fuel protest, has been the catalyst here. But when he talks about the social contract, when he talks about people expecting to get a return for their efforts, talking about the housing situation where people can no longer have necessarily an expectation of getting a home, owning a home, that's kind of a different proposition being put forward there, that every time these issues arise, they are about specific issues. And the point that those three TDs seem to be making is this is not about one issue. You can't just say, all right, well, that's dealt with, we'll move on now. That there is a wider problem here.
They seem to be almost saying, Fionnan, that that they were unusual in their generation for choosing politics as a way to make a change, and they're nearly saying that they were wrong to think it.
No, I don't think they were saying they were wrong to think. I mean, they were saying that they joined because of the values that the party had, and this was, Fianna Fáil was always the kind of the party of the aspiring classes, the people who didn't have the wealth, but who saw that if you work hard and you contribute to society, that society gives you something back, in return, and they're saying that there's a bit of a break there now, and they're saying that it's also important. The significance of the three of them is that they're saying, well, we are of that generation. We're representing that generation of people who are caught in these situations where the cost of living crisis is hitting them, the affordability of housing, the prospect of owning a home seems like a far off dream, and that they are basically putting their hands up and saying, listen, we actually know who these people are, because that's our generation. They're not people who have been around a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan O'Mara was raising that as soon as he joined the council. It was one of his talking points and one of his focuses. Has he done himself any harm, or has he done himself good in putting his head above the parapet?
I think things will always be mixed in terms of, some people will say, oh, you should keep the head down and say nothing, but like they clearly put a bit of thought into it when you see what they're saying. They didn't just go out and give an interview and give out. Their point as well, they make a fairly solid point about being expected to explain the government's problems to their communities, which there's an irony there in that they're basically saying, look, there's all these problems, but we're not getting solutions. So rather than going out to people and saying, oh, this is the problem, this is how we're going to address it, instead there seems to be a constant flow of excuses coming from government in terms
Here's
of,
why we're not going to address it.
The planning system, it's going to take too long, and the economy wanting to do it at this stage, and there's a regulator there, it's the EU, or and so on. So they're basically saying they want to get back to, there are challenges facing society at every stage, and they want to focus on being able to talk about solutions. And there has been that accusation against this government that they've been very slow, not just in responding to, like, you can say this one caught them on the hop because it was a new and an emerging issue that came about because of the war in the Middle East. You're kind of going, okay, fine, you're saying that you were taking a bit more time to be a bit more cautious in terms of how you're going to address this issue. That's fine. But what about housing? What about public transport? What about childcare? Those are not new issues, and yet this government is being accused of being quite slow to address them. And they also have got the problem as well that funding is no longer an excuse. And I suppose that's probably unique in Irish history. In the past, you could always turn around and go, yeah, listen, we'd love to undertake this project, but we don't have the money at this particular point in time. The point being made at the moment is the money is there, but is the ability to spend the money, implement the policy, and get value from money, is that there? And that's the criticism. So I think I'm reading into what the two guys were saying, but you can see where their frustration is emerging from, that this is about far more than just 5 days worth of fuel protest.
Yeah, look, a couple of quick things I want to ask you about before we go, Fionnan. Michael Healy-Rae, that was a bit of a surprise, was it? I was talking to someone in Kerry politics not so long ago who claimed that Danny was actually the brains of the operation, which I was sceptical about. But in this case, was Michael's hand forced by his brother?
Yeah, possibly, but you can say it was a surprise in the way it came about, but it certainly wasn't a shock. I mean, Michael was said to be threatening to pull out of government over the Mercosur agreement, which other independent TDs were just saying, hang on a second, you work your way through these things, you don't go around just threatening to pull out. And ultimately, the government ended up voting against that at a European level. I don't think anybody spoke to government. They were never convinced that the two of them were in for the 5 years. Michael seems to like being a minister. Danny was on the back benches, probably wasn't seeing the benefits of being in government. They were getting hounded pretty much on a local level as well, where previously they were able to complain and say, why isn't this issue being addressed? And the answer coming back this time, particularly from the Sinn Féin TD Pat Daly, was basically, well, you're in government, lads. What are you complaining about? So I suppose if you draw a comparison with the past, their father, the late Jackie Healy-Rae, he signed up to a deal in 2002. He stuck with it all the way to 2007. There were difficult stretches along the way. There were things he had to vote for, and he did that. And he had subsequent arrangements with the government, which are not as crucial because of the arithmetic, but he could be relied upon. There wasn't really a sense that the two lads could be relied upon to the same extent, and that they were going to go overboard at some point. The comparison, I suppose, with Jackie Healy-Rae is now probably with Michael Lowry, in that there is kind of trust in government that when he signs up to something, when he agrees to an arrangement, he sticks with it. The same being said about Sean Kenny. The same being said about Kevin Boxer Moran. That these are guys who've been there previously, who have done it, who've shown that they will stay the course. And with the two Healy-Rae brothers, that just wasn't the case. There wasn't confidence that they were going to be there.
One final one then, Fionnan, if you don't mind. Catherine Connolly, it's only about a week or so since she appointed her Council of State nominees, and she's already referring a fairly important piece of legislation and considering whether to refer to the Supreme Court. Is any government reaction to that so far?
Well, obviously, government will argue that it is constitutional, that it does match up. As you say, it is a significant piece of legislation. The Minister for Justice himself is saying that it is the most significant overhaul of our asylum immigration system that we've ever had. So therefore, it's going to the President, and the President is going, okay, well, there seems to be a lot of concerns being raised here about whether there are constitutional rights being removed here. So she's probably right to call the Council of State as a result of that. It's another step entirely to actually refer it to the Supreme Court, because if you go down that route, legal experts would say you'd want to be right for a couple of reasons, because once it's referred to the Supreme Court by the President, it rules out any further challenges, so it doesn't allow the legislation to evolve over time. Also, if it's referred to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court comes back and goes, listen, we don't see any problem here at all, it does undermine the President's credibility, because then the accusation will be, well, you were too trigger happy there, you just didn't like it, and that it was from an ideological perspective that you referred it rather than a legal and constitutional one. That's your job. So I don't see a problem with calling the Council of State, but it's another step entirely to actually refer it to the Supreme Court. For the Supreme Court to actually take a bill like this and actually throw it back at the Oireachtas and go, yeah, the President is right, this doesn't match up, that would be another crisis for the government and certainly our...
Okay, so we'll have to wait and see
as well.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how she makes a decision on it, I guess.
Yeah, you can see why she stacked her Council of State full of legal experts
and human rights people.
But human rights people ultimately they're people of credibility. They're not people who are just going to start referring bills for the sake of it, because they know themselves it is a very high stakes move for a president to refer a bill to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Okay. Look, there's a lot we didn't get to, but look, I'll take a quick break here. Fionnan, thanks very much for talking to us. I'm sure we'll talk again, and we'll be back to you very quickly, folks.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, Tip today here with Donal in for Fran again, and apologies if my fader was up there. We're going to keep with the Fianna Fail situation, I guess we'd call it, and we're going to talk to Pat Mullaly, a long-time member and activist for the party. Good morning, Pat. How are you?
Morning, Donald. How are you keeping?
I am very good, Pat. Listen, tell me, look, you're a long-standing member of Fianna Fail. You've seen a lot of these kind of situations come and go. What's your take on what's happened over the past week and really over the past 2 weeks, I guess?
Well, I suppose really it was a difficult day for Fianna Fail in one sense, and a difficult day for the government, or a difficult week for the government, understanding what happened inside it. But there was an awful lot of vitriol out there, online abuse to politicians, irrespective of who they were. You mentioned there, Fionnan Sheahan mentioned the Healy Rays. I saw a TikTok post where Danny was abused because he turned up at a blockade or a protest march down in Kerry, and he was abused to the high heavens. And I can understand where the likes of Ryan O'Meara and James O'Connor and those where they're coming from in one sense. I was surprised that the three boys, as they're being named, the three amigos, came out publicly on it, because really, when you are in a party, you shouldn't wash your dirty linen in public, in one sense. Now, there was a certain amount of frustration from the three boys, because going down through the statement that they issued out, we got a history on what Fianna Fail was all about, and then there was a couple of lines down at the bottom that they feel it very difficult to go back and bring the bad news back out to the constituents. Now, I know Ryan O'Meara very, very well, and I think he's a very, very good politician, and the press release, I think, and he was a bit inconceived and a bit immature, Personally, I applaud his commitment to his job. He's a very, very good politician, and his commitment to the party, his commitment to the constituents, is very, very high, in the sense that he is to the fore at all times, and he represents them very, very well. But if you look at when he was elected, his office in Thurles was graffiti smeared.
Yeah.
So I could possibly see the amount of abuse that they possibly got, and they said, look, we went into politics.
Yeah, probably more abuse in this past couple of weeks than they would have, and I'm sure they got abuse before now, but this probably was on another level.
This was on another level, and I can see the likes of Michael Healy-Rae. Michael Healy-Rae got up and he stood up and blindsided everybody, resigned his seat. That's to fall on your sword is a difficult thing to do. So obviously there's something in the background, and there was, because he got such abuse from in a party meeting, or I wouldn't call it a party meeting, but a constituent meeting in Midtown down in Kerry, and he was abused to high heavens inside in that, and threats made to him. So he wondered which side of the fence they'd go, and I'd say both the two boys just said, hey, hold on a minute, are we going to put up with that? Because Michael Healy-Rae is a very strong politician, and I would imagine that abuse like that is like water off a duck, but whatever abuse he got, it frightened him. Now, he came outside the door, he put his hand up, as some hack said, a Trumpian salute, and he was a hero for 5 minutes. And then he had to go back to Kerry that night and meet his constituents again, and didn't get more abuse from them. So, he was a hero for 5 minutes. Politics is a week in politics is a long time. And looking at Micheál Martin, the 17th of March, he was in the White House, and he came back glorified, and one of the best politicians out there, and one of the most popular leaders of the country. And then a month afterwards, he's getting high abuse all over the place. Now, he's going to ride out that thing. I know he's going to ride it out, because as Fionnan Sheahan said, who are the pretenders? Or the people that would actually take over the party. There's nobody going to put their name to the fore. So he's going to ride out this. And we're going to see Micheál Martin doing his statesmanship thing in Europe. And he's well liked in Europe. And that's important to be liked in Europe. And
that'll be important for the EU presidency, won't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And the thing about it is that the protest march was hijacked. And there's no doubt in life about that.
Look, there's a lot here. I didn't
leave
leave you enough time, Pat, because I was talking too long to Fionnan. Will you hang on with us till after the news, just so we can...
Absolutely, no problem. Yeah.
If that's all right. Sorry, we had time scheduled for you and I went a bit over with Fionnan. But I got to go to news now shortly. So if you stay with us, we'll come back to you as soon as I can. Is that all right?
That's no problem.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks very much. OK, folks, we're going to be going to news just now.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, welcome back to this Friday Tip Today with Donald Doyle sitting in for Fran Curry. Leanne is sitting by the phone on 1-800-938-007, which is our free phone number, but you can also text and WhatsApp to 083 311 3311, and we have our competition, of course, as well today. We are now going to go straight back to Pat Mullally. Pat, are you still there? Sorry for keeping you.
No problem. I am, Donald. Yes, no problem.
And Pat, thanks for staying with us, because I wanted to see, you kind of touched on, we were talking about the Healy Rays and their actions and how they couldn't stand by the government, but and some of the abuse that the likes of Ryan O'Mara might have been taking. What's your view? Has he garnered, is that frustration widespread among the grassroots members, I guess, Pat?
Well, yes. There is a bit of frustration there in the sense of that I would put it all down to communication. Now, even though this is the age of communication when it is, rife out there as regards social media and whatever the case may be, but I do think, and even I think looking at the statement put out by the three lads, there is a lack of communication being channeled down from above. Now, whether that's from the leaders of the party, the ministers inside in the party, or alternatively, is it from head office itself? Now, like what they did say inside in the statement, in the second last paragraph of it, was that too often today we find senior colleagues expect us to explain their government difficulties to our communities, but they also have they have to go to their communities and also give the good news. So there's a day that you're going to spread some good news as regards a grant being offered for a local school or whatever the case may be, but there's also days that you've got to communicate the bad news down, and that's in a sense, that's leadership. When you have to take the hard decisions as regards trying to keep the country afloat. Now, it's not right at the moment and not right in the middle of a crisis to try and usurp a government. Okay, shake them up a bit. Shake them up a bit as what happened inside in the protests. But when the protests were hijacked in the sense that there was too much vitriol out there as regards, even Michael Lowry mentioned what he got and the abuse his staff got inside in their offices. Michael Murphy in
Michael Murphy as well.
Thing as well. And I would say that the Ryan O'Mara and the Fianna Fail boys were not isolated from that. I would imagine that they got the abuse as well. And this abuse is horrid that's going around there. We'll just take, for example, the two guards that were in the squad car in Monaghan yesterday that was rammed. You should see the abuse that the guards were getting inside in that, in the sense that everybody was backing up for the guy that went away. He's a hero. Take him in, give him a safe house, give him a hot meal, change his clothes. Look, that's unprecedented what you can actually see out there. And what's breaking that? I know that the country are under huge problems, the citizens of this country, as regards the cost of living, the price of petrol, the price of diesel, whatever the case may be, to go to work. And people are looking at this as, who's the cause of it? The only thing I would say as regards Micheál Martin, in the sense that he was a very, very popular leader coming after the 17th of March, a month ago. Today is the 17th of April. And fear of being a popular leader can usurp his confidence, and whatever the case may be, you actually see the people out there saying, "We'll get rid of him soon," cause problems inside in the party. Like, there was no one mentioned as regards who are going to be the next leader of inside in Fianna Fáil. Like, you remember
and who would you back,
Pat?
We do have a few names that are being battered around and have been for a while.
They're battered around, but they're not.
You don't think any of them are real contenders, no?
No, not real contenders. Like Jim McCallan, in fairness, now he done his own damage to himself. He'll have to stay a little bit longer inside as a minister and prove himself. You know, Derek O'Leary is a nice man, a very, very good worker inside, but I don't think they're going to come to the fore. They were looking for They were looking for maybe a debate, and there will be a debate. You know, and there was a debate, a parliamentary party meeting last Friday, and there was a debate among the party themselves as regards how they were going to handle this. Then there was we look at the Healy-Raes. He was a minister a minister of state in the Department of Forestry, who was the workers that were looking for the diesel cuts. And he didn't agree to the measures that were given there, and then decided
was involved in the negotiations, from what we hear.
He was under pressure.
Yeah. He was involved in the negotiations, from what we hear, and put out videos backing the deal as a great deal.
What was coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to Ryan O'Mara then, Pat. Like, you think he should be learning to suck it up a bit when the times are hard and ride the wave when the times are good. Has he done any harm to his standing in the party then by putting out this statement?
No, I don't think so. Look, the thing about it is, like, he's a young politician. He's a very, very good politician, a very able politician, and well able to bring his point across and well able to fight his corner. You know, but I would imagine that the abuse that anybody got, they targeted the women inside in the Dáil. They targeted the young politicians, I would imagine, as well, forcing them to maybe the chances are to cause a rift within the party itself. And then everybody is delighted as far as the opposition side is concerned. Oh, we rattled them. You know what I mean? And there's a heave inside in Fianna Fáil, which we don't need in a country that's in a worldwide crisis. You know, we need a stable government, and that's what we should have. And the opposition should row in behind the government and see, can we sort out the problems rather than shouting and roaring inside in the Dáil for half a day. You know,
so do you think that
constructive coming out?
Sorry to cut across, but do you think then that Micheál Martin will see out his half term as Taoiseach and the government will survive?
Absolutely, because the thing about it is, it's folly. It's pure suicide for the country if there's going to be a heave inside in the middle of this crisis, and it is a worldwide crisis. You see what's happening over in the States at the moment. You have a lunatic over there that's actually not taking swipes at the Pope. Like, there's 60 billion Catholics out there, and he doesn't realise the power of the Catholic religion, you know, and the people people of my age, people that respect the Pope as who he is, and there's a lot of people of other denominations respect the Pope, but this clown is taking a cut at him because he was looking for peace in Iran. Like, this is pure lunacy, and he's the elephant in the room. Like, if the protest went over with a couple of tons of slurry and spread it in Doonbeg golf course, that would hit him in his pocket. Maybe that would be the thing they should have done. You know,
well, sure. The fertilizer costs are hitting the golf courses too. They might welcome it down there. Pat, listen, on that note, and we won't make any other allusions to whether the slurry was coming from bulls to bring down to Doonbeg. Let's leave it there for now, Pat. And thanks for staying with us over the news. And we'll talk to you again shortly.
You're very welcome, and thanks a million, Dornan.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks very much. Now, we have a finalist for today in our Larry O'Keefe's Furniture voucher competition. Today's finalist is Nancy Dorney-Collins from Thurles. So, congratulations to Nancy. You're in the hat for the draw, which will happen in the next hour or so, and we'll announce that a little later on. Now, we are going to have a quick look at these couple of texts in there. Oh, jeepers, we had some criticism of Johnny Luby, someone who's obviously a member of Carrick on Shore Rugby Club, asking Johnny to give them a mention the odd time. They say they had two great seasons and were in a Shield final in Thomond Park. Somebody is texting in to say that there was no one coming forward to challenge for leadership in Fianna Fáil, and it shows the dearth of the dearth of talent in the party. And he's highlighting that they had to go outside the party to find someone to run for president. That's from George and Nina, and we know how that presidential election fared. And we'll be talking a little bit about that and about Jim Gavin later on when we bring our panel in as well. Now, I'm going to go quickly back to the phones, and we're staying with the situation in Fianna Fail. Collette Roche is the South Tipperary Fianna Fail Women's Network. She's also the constituency organiser for the party. Collette, how are you this Friday morning?
Hi, Donal. I'm very well, thank you.
And thanks for coming on with us. No, thanks. It's great to talk to you. Tell me, look, Fianna Fail have been dominating the headlines, and something I forgot to ask Pat because we came up against the news. Is there any, I suppose, frustration in the party that it's Fianna Fail getting it in the neck and Fine Gael has escaped relatively unscathed from the fuel crisis?
Well, I suppose it's not really frustration, but I suppose that's what comes when you are in leadership. And I suppose because we have, even though we are partners in government with Fine Gael, we have a Fianna Fáil Taoiseach. So I suppose that's what happens, that we're kind of taking the brunt of both government parties coming against it. So I think that's I wouldn't say frustration, but it's just an acknowledgement that because Micheál Martin is the Fianna Fáil leader and Taoiseach, we're probably getting it more than Fine Gael.
Yeah, and I suppose Jim O'Callaghan also put himself in the firing line as being one of the next most senior.
Minister for Transport.
Yes, of course. Yeah, all of the. I wasn't even really thinking about Darragh O'Brien, who managed to keep his head down a little. I know he was involved in all the negotiations with the hauliers and the farming groups. I was just going to say he was involved
in all the important parts, which was the negotiations in the background and helping to get the package over the line. And that's where I suppose Fianna Fáil came out in front that we were hugely involved in that negotiation and getting that package.
Okay, and how do you feel about how it has played out then since?
Well, I suppose it's been difficult. It's been a difficult week for everyone protesting, and I suppose it's been a difficult week for the party as well in the communication. And I suppose it is time for a change to improve communication within the party. And there's no point saying otherwise. We have to acknowledge that there needs to be better communication between the leadership and the parliamentary party and the backbenchers and grassroots especially. There was talks going on in the background with all the relevant bodies, and they were going on for about 2 weeks with the relevant bodies and organisations. But I don't think that this was known and it wasn't communicated. And I suppose that's what left people so frustrated. They felt they weren't listened to. And then they were left feeling that the only option was to protest, which, as we know, then escalated.
And I suppose was the reaction time, because we say it was poor communication, but the government did say at the various points that when the hauliers had their protest and stood it down, that look, we are in talks now, we are working on something, we are looking at the situation. But that wasn't the message that people were hearing.
And that message was going out, albeit a little bit late. I think because of the communication that came first from the leadership, probably lacked empathy, was kind of poorly communicated, and maybe people kind of stopped listening then to the message, and they refused then to listen and didn't want to listen when they heard that that there was talks with the relevant unions, the relevant bodies, and that people just didn't want to engage with that then, and it kind of escalated then over time, which is unfortunate that it came to that.
And what do you make then, I suppose, of the reaction of Ryan O'Mara and his two young colleagues in the Dáil, that it's basically they saw themselves as foot soldiers being sent out in the firing line to bring this message that there's nothing we can do? Well,
I know Ryan well. I know Albert Dolan as well. I don't know James O'Connor very well, but I know Ryan especially is a very genuine, sincere, very hard-working TD, works very hard for his constituency, works very hard in the Dáil. And you could sense the level of frustration that they had. But leadership, what they were saying was that leadership has to be willing to communicate better and to support them better. And having been able to have a dissenting voice, like at no point in that letter did they call for anyone to resign, call for anyone's head. They were simply just calling out that there needs to be a better forum in the leadership for challenging failures, challenging the strengths, or communicating the strengths. And like, that's what democracy looks like. It's healthy to challenge aspects of party policy and party leadership and have an expectation that they'll be listened to. And that's what healthy democracy and healthy leadership looks like. And I think that's what they were calling out. And I think it was a very brave step of them. I think that letter was very measured, that they're feeling. And that evening that they were able to go in and speak to the party leadership about it just shows that there is an avenue there open for communication.
Yeah, I suppose, and they've been quiet since. I haven't seen any of them coming out. I know I was trying to see if Ryan would talk to us after I saw the statement, and they've kind of kept their heads down since. Do you think they had the impact they were looking for, I wonder?
Well, I think that they gave their statement, and they went in that evening and spoke to the party leadership. I don't know the outcome of that, but the fact that they haven't issued anything, maybe that they will in the future, but I have to take it that was a positive thing, that it certainly was acknowledged, the fact that they had those meetings later in the day, which is as it should be done.
Yeah, and Pat was just on with us there, Collette. I don't know if you heard him, but he kind of thought it was a bit of airing the dirty laundry in public, and should it not have just been aired at the parliamentary party meeting?
And that's a fair statement too, but I think their letter, that's what they felt, that was the avenue that they wanted to go down, and they felt that it should be communicated out, and that's the strategy that they had. So, and it seemed to have worked for them, because obviously that they had those meetings later in the day.
Okay, this communications issue then, is this because, or is this, I suppose, similar to the issues that were highlighted after the whole presidential election debacle, which obviously at the time people were saying, lessons have to be learned. Were there any lessons learned?
Well, I think this shows again that, I suppose Noel Madden has a very, he has a very strong leadership style. And he's demonstrated very strong leadership in times of crisis, like when the party was nearly wiped out in that election 20 years ago, during COVID, during Brexit, and he tends to keep things very close. He does care very deeply about the party and about the country, but he does need to learn to delegate more, and I think to trust his backbenchers and keep people more in the loop of his decision making. It's just, I suppose, it's a leadership style. But I do think that needs to change. I can understand at times of crisis that's what you tend to do. Leaders tend to keep things close. But I do think he just needs to delegate more and to communicate more within the party. And you could, like, from the letter from Ryan, Albert and James, that's basically what they were asking for. They were asking for better communication, and to be talked to more, rather than, I suppose, handed a statement and saying this is the party line. So I think that is a style of leadership that needs to be looked at, and and needs to be challenged.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any, I suppose, challenge to the leadership among the senior ministers. No appetite for regime change there. Is there any appetite among the party in general, I suppose? Do you want to see Noel Madden leading you into another election?
And you see, I think this is where we get mixed up, where we have to be able to say that we can challenge aspects of a leadership, but we're not necessarily calling for a leadership change. And it's certainly not the time for a leadership change. We're heading into a huge period of uncertainty between the war on our doorstep in Ukraine, the blockades in Iran, and with the war in Iran, no one knows what way that's going. We could be heading for a global recession. We're also heading into the European presidency, which is vitally important, hugely important. And we need to have a stable government, stable leadership. And that's what we have. We have people challenging aspects, but not challenging the leadership. And that's what's important. So they do need to delegate more and trust their backbenchers, trust the grassroots. But it's okay to challenge that, but it is not the time for leadership change.
Okay, is there any?
And that's why we're not seeing anyone coming out challenging it. Yeah,
probably a bit of a poison chalice as well. My phrase of the day yesterday, Collette, was that the fuel crisis hasn't gone away, so anyone stepping in or challenging now would be facing a lot of the same problems for a long time to come, possibly.
And to be fair, I think anyone that's in public service is not there. They're there for the hard part. I mean, let's face it, like, you know, a lot of people that are working in the backbenches and public service, they could be in jobs, similar money, doing an easier job where you're out of the spotlight. You're very much in the spotlight in government. It's not an easy position to be in. And the packages that and they're walking a very fine line. The global economy is very uncertain. It's going to be a difficult time for government, and that they're very aware that they're going to have to put together some kind of energy package probably in the next budget. And they have to contend with that kind of uncertainty. I don't know who'd want it, to be honest with you. It's a very difficult scenario to be in. And there's nobody on the opposition benches that is offering any kind of reasonable alternative. Like, it would be fiscally irresponsible to give any other packages out now, because they have to allow for what's going to come down the line in October. Nobody knows. Like, a global recession is very likely. And they're going to have to allow for that. We could have massive job losses here. We could have the fuel crisis could escalate even further. We could be seeing, you know, bigger price hikes for fuel in our shops. Like that lady that you spoke to yesterday about how to manage, you know, your shopping and how all those tips. We could be doing all that later, and the government are trying to allow for that and trying to plan for that.
Yes, we probably should be trying to plant a few spuds in the back garden, but if the government came out and told us to do that, I don't think people would be happy.
Probably not, and it's probably not the answer or leadership that people are looking for.
Certainly when Eamon Ryan told people to plant spuds on the balconies and the windowsills, it didn't go down well at all. Listen, I suppose, how are we feeling about government stability in general? Obviously, look, you're talking about the party not really having any appetite for change within the party. Any, I suppose, disquiet that the Healy-Raes abandoned you at the first big hurdle in by you, I mean the coalition, obviously, Collette, not personally.
I know. I the way I felt about the tough, when the going got tough, the Healy-Raes got going. So it was disappointing to see them pull out of government at such an early stage. But I suppose that is what happens sometimes when you do go in with independence, which is why I'm, that they were, when they did go in with independence, they went in with quite a higher number to ensure that if there was any kind of dissent like that, which is exactly what's happened, that the two of them have now left the government, which is unfortunate. But that's their personal decision. And there is still adequate numbers within the government between the other two parties and the other independents, that for now the government is stable, and I hope it stays that way, because whoever is in government, whatever party is in government, needs to be fiscally responsible and to lead us through a crisis like this.
Yeah, down to 5 is it now, the government majority, the coalition majority with Michael Lowry's regional independent group. That, given that you talked about the possibility or even likelihood of the war in Iran leading to a global recession, is that enough of a buffer going into what could be turbulent waters?
In what way? Sorry, no, I don't understand.
A majority of 5 in the Dáil and tough times, possibly more of them to come.
Well, it is for now. So, let's hope that that majority will keep holding. I think that the government are, trying to reach out to everyone that it's, within their independence, and trying to ensure that it's stable and ensure that, everyone keeps voting the right way, and just keep going. But I think for now the government is stable. I think that they've demonstrated that, within the last few weeks, that, as you say, Fianna Fail took the heavy hitting between the leadership, between justice, and between transport. We have a lot of the very difficult ministries, and the ministers there are working very hard to ensure that their departments are ticking over, that they've got all the budgetary requirements. So that's the important thing for governance.
Okay, very good. Listen, thanks very much for joining us this morning, Collette.
Thanks, Donald. Appreciate the time.
No problem. Thanks, Collette. It's great to get your opinions, and we will move on quickly now. We've got some good news for you coming up after a few moments. We'll be speaking to Noel Madden to see the good news that he's bringing.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Yeah, welcome back to Tip Today with Donal here for Fran today. We had a bit of reaction to our last couple of pieces there. We were focusing on Fianna Fail because they've been the headlines really for the past little while. Someone unhappy though that we weren't presenting both sides of the story about the government. They were only interested in sharing positive commentary. It's like listening to a party political broadcast. I'm not sure Fianna Fail would agree with you. There was some criticism in there both of Ryan O'Mara and of the leadership. I know we were talking to a couple of Fianna Fail activists, but it was trying to get the view on how the party is coming out of it. We did have a sort of a more rounded view, if you like, from Fionnan Sheahan, and we have been tackling some of these other issues over the past couple of days as well. Someone unhappy that I was allowing her to scaremonger. Look, she did mention that there is, Collette, did mention that there is a likelihood, I think she made it a bit stronger than that, of a global recession. But unfortunately, she's not the only one. We've had people, including the EU Energy Commissioner, saying we are likely to see the effects of this, even if it wraps up quickly, war in Iran for years. We've had other predictions of the risk of effects from lots of economists and senior figures in various organisations. So unfortunately, the world is a scary place at the moment, and we have to be aware of that. We also have, on a lighter note, someone asking me to announce that Adrian Ryan is in Laura Moatfield tonight at 9 o'clock, and there is Checkers in Dunkirk tomorrow night with All Welcome. Thanks very much, from Jamie Kennedy. Okay, now it is time to go over to the phones again, and we have Noel Madden speaking to us this morning. Noel, good morning to you.
Good morning, Donald. How are you? And thanks very much for having me.
Not too bad, Noel. You have a bit of good news for us, but I want you to explain the situation for me first. You were on speaking to Fran not so long ago. Can you tell us what your issue was?
Back a few months ago, we were on Queen Street in Clonmel, just outside Bodega 1830 Cafe, and we had a bus 245 would not stop to pick up vulnerable old people on the bus and bring them to either to Mitchelstown or to Cork. The bus driver wanted them. Now, not every bus driver, I will stipulate that one, not every bus driver would stop for us. There was only one particular driver, I won't mention the name for identification purposes, but he wouldn't stop for us anyways, and he made us walk up to Western Road outside the hospital. Now, old, vulnerable people try to pull their shopping from Aldi or Lidl all the way up there and wait for the bus in pouring rain. So I went along one day and I saw this happening, and I went to our good friend Seamus Healy, our TD, and he put a kind of a proposal together, and he sent it into the on bus Éireann, or as we all know it now as TFI. That went on for a couple of weeks until we got the good news, and as of the 19th of April, 245 has to stop outside the bus Queen Street now for all people going to Cork.
Yeah, it's the NTA, I think, for buses now. TII are the roads. But, so the message went in and they heard it.
They heard it, and they saw that there was a need for the bus to stop there. And they implemented it, and they got it together, and they gave it to us. So that's one good news we have out of it, that the bus didn't want to stop at all for us.
Right, but now I suppose, and is this every bus? There was the issues were only with certain routes,
only 245, and not every driver on 245 wanted to stop. I'd say out of all the runs in the week, we had one particular driver that did not want to stop. He said it wasn't on his system. Now we couldn't say that to an old lady that wanted to get on the bus, that it wasn't on the system. Like, they weren't able to walk up to Western Road. They were barely able to walk across the road. We had to link them over and just let them sit on the seat underneath the shelter in Queen Street. You know, the bus shelter that's across the road from Bodega.
Yeah.
They wanted to sit there in that seat and wait for the 245 bus to go to Cork. Well, one particular driver would not stop for us, and we had to put in. There was any amount of complaints put in about his attitude, the way he wouldn't stop for people. He had made a lot of enemies for himself.
But the situation has changed now. The directive has come down, and every bus
now,
passing that way now is going to stop right there.
Yes. And I even said it to Fran a couple of weeks ago back on this, and we had to bring it to the attention to the public. And an awful lot of people was furious over it. Fran and Donald. And we just said, enough is enough. We can't have old people going up in the rain outside Western Road, pouring rain. I wouldn't mind if they said they were going to put a bush shelter in it. Any amount of people would have went up there then, but no. It's just completely utter ridiculous that they made old people walk up all the way up there.
But it's a bit of good news and a bit of respite, less of a walk and a handier bus stop now for people. That's
Correct.
great news.
Correct, Donald.
That's brilliant. Thanks for bringing it to our attention, Noel. It's great to see action happening when problems are raised. We can get solutions sometimes instead of moving on.
There is a solution behind every problem, but some of them now don't want to do anything for us. We have to stress it very clearly that we need something done. Like, I'll give an example. We want a bush shelter out here in Ardfinnan. We can't get it. But that is my next project to do. Even though I'm a normal public person, we will get up at the upper half of Ardfinnan, we will look for a bush shelter there as well. Because some people can't walk down all the way to the village in Ardfinnan.
Very good.
Again.
Okay, very good. So you'll be on to Bus Éireann again and seeing what the situation is with getting in the extra bus stop there. That's brilliant. Another project for you, Noel. One success under the belt, but there's always another one down the road, isn't there?
Yes, that's it. No, thanks, Donald.
Thanks, Noel. Thanks very much for talking to us. Okay,
Bye,
folks, we'll be back with our psychotherapist, Joannes Berkley.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, welcome back to Tip Today, our second hour, continuing now with our psychotherapist, Joannes Berkley. Joanna, we haven't spoken before, or Joannes, sorry, excuse me, slip of the tongue, but we haven't spoken before, so welcome in to our Nina studios. How are you getting on?
I'm great, thank you. I've spent the morning cleaning the offices and waiting for some engineer to come and put in broadband. So it's been a productive morning, but there's no engineer yet.
No, I was going to say that those mornings waiting for people to come and sort you out like that can be long mornings. And days.
You can always switch it to a productive morning.
Yeah. Good. And cleaning doesn't exactly. I'm not a cleaner. I don't get huge satisfaction out of it myself, but a lot of people do.
Well, I'm more organising.
Yeah,
filing and stuff like that. So it's really satisfying.
Okay, that's good. I do like a bit of organisation myself, although I mightn't look it. Now, tell me, you were in last time with Fran, Joannes, and you were talking about drink issues and sobriety, and Leanne was telling me that we had a young man who wrote in afterwards and said that whenever he makes a decision for himself, he feels good about it, but he questions himself then because of others' opinions. I don't know, what's your reaction to that?
I think the only soul we can save is our own. The only person we can look after is our own. My dad had a great saying, and I didn't learn this in college. I learned this from being knee high. Those that matter don't mind, and those that mind don't matter. if I'm making a decision not to drink alcohol and people have issues around that, that's about them. It's not about me. And if we're continually trying to please other people and gain their acceptance and gain their approval, we're never really listening to our own soul and our own heart and our own mind. We get swayed.
Yeah, so I suppose this young man was kind of saying that he does enjoy when he makes a decision for himself, and that he obviously feels the power from that. We should all be kind of chasing that kind of autonomy, should we?
Well, I don't use the word should very much, but it's like when he makes that decision, he knows it's right for him. And then he gets swayed when he goes out in his circle and they go, why aren't you drinking? Or what's wrong? You see, drink gives us a temporary release to social anxiety. It makes us feel we belong. It increases, our awareness of connection with others and joy, and everything kind of gets blurry. But there's a very, very thin line between that and just slipping over that edge where you're not in control of what's happening and you're not really aware of your own sense of self. When you lose that sense of self, then you're losing a lot. And the big issue with alcohol, and it's so socially acceptable, but I see it every day, and I mean every day of my work, that people have so much paranoia afterwards and depression, and it really affects mental health. And it's a socially acceptable, legalised drug, and yet it has huge mental health effects. As well, now the World Health Organization last year has named it as number 1 carcinogenic. So why are we doing this to ourselves? Why can't we meet in a sober way and connect like this, rather than needing this alcohol, this mood-altering drug to connect? And that's not real connection. And I'm not anti-drink. It's a great thing if you want to celebrate, if you want to drink. But I'm saying when it starts to affect your mental health, and I don't know anybody that it doesn't affect their mental health.
Yeah, I suppose we use it, we always use the term social lubricant, that it kind of lets everyone slip into what we hope is the same kind of mood. But it often isn't, is the problem. It
often isn't. And you're off, you've been out and I've been out, and somebody flips or they start crying and they get really into despair, or they
get angry.
Or they get angry. Yeah, they get really angry. Like the Treaty Suicide Watch in Limerick, who I think they just do fantastic work. They patrol the bridges in Limerick, and they say that 90% of the people that they meet that are contemplating suicide are either drunk or high on drugs. So it's an impulsive, compulsive drug that makes us do things that we wouldn't normally do. And then there's regret afterwards. How many times have people woken up and go, oh, Jeannie, did I piss Donal off? Did I piss her? What did I say? God, how did they get home, or how did I get home? So when you lose that autonomy of yourself and sense of self, it's a lubricant. At what cost?
Yeah. Look, we're all chasing that ideal time when you meet up, you have great fun with a few friends, or even a bigger group, or whatever it is, and everyone, is crying, laughing at whatever stories somebody is telling. But that is, I suppose, we chase that, but it doesn't happen a lot.
We chase that, and it can happen over breakfast and brunch and a walk. We can have all those connections, and they're much more real and they're much more mindful connections, rather than this social lubricant alcohol where it's affecting everybody at different levels, so you don't really know who you're meeting. And I drank all my life, and I have chosen now to be alcohol free because it gives me such freedom, But it's so interesting. The level of conversation just gets all murky and nobody's really listening and they're butting in across one another and, physically they're slapping you on the shoulder and telling you they love you, but they wouldn't tell you that when they're sober. And you go,
yeah,
let's meet and just smile at one another, and that's enough than saying all this stuff,
Yeah, it's hard to be the sober one in a group, isn't it? That is drinking.
It's hard to be the sober one and the psychotherapist. Although I do switch off that head. But there's nothing for me. We chatted about Munster Rugby before I came on. Donald was saying he's from Kerry, he's a blow-in, and I said he's not, he's from Munster. So, for me, I would always have had a little nagging of brandy at a Munster match. Now, it was for the cold, because I'm a terrorist.
Little hip flask.
A little
yes,
hip
you're
flask.
A traditionalist.
Because of the cold and also because of the nerves, because Munster do that to you, and or to me. But to watch a match sober, the thrill is so much more exhilarating than being fogged with alcohol. Like the pleasure is so much more intense.
Yes, well, I know absolutely. As a Kerry man, we've been to many All-Irelands, and it can be a long day if you're leaving Kerry early in the morning, southwest Kerry, to go to Dublin, and people stopping on the way and people get tanked up. And I know men who've made massive journeys to go to matches and can't remember the match.
Yes. How sad is that?
It's terrible.
And they think that that's the way to do it.
Yeah, well, they probably may regret it afterwards, but I didn't mean to get that bad,
Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about. That moment of slip is never, you can't control that or choose that, because now you're under the influence of this mood-altering drug. Yeah. And for some people that may be exhilarating, and for some people that may be depressing. But it always leads to kind of paranoia about, in the days afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, because when I do an intake with somebody new, I ask them, do they drink alcohol? Oh, socially. And then you realise, well, Thursday they drink a few because it's Friday, and then Friday they drink a lot because it's a treat and they deserve it after a long week. And then, you kind
of get locked into a way of thinking there. Is it a habit, or is there a thought processes that we can use that might give us a bit more control over it?
Well, for me, my time off is really precious to me. So I want to do things of self-care and self-enjoyment. So I don't want to wake up on Saturday morning with a hangover and waste half a day. My life is too precious. My time is too precious. We're not here for a rehearsal,
This is it.
This is it. So if you think it's a treat and you deserve it and it's a reward for a week's work to drink on a Friday night, but what are the consequences mentally, physically? And then this, I can't understand why the World Health Organization hasn't screamed that alcohol is the number one carcinogenic. So are cigarettes. It's on the same level. Yeah, I know.
Suppose, what kind of message could we give people then who might be maybe on that borderline now, where they're thinking, maybe you're right, maybe I need to rein it in a little bit, or what's the best advice you can give people?
I always say just give it up for a month. Just say I'm going alcohol-free for the month of May. And see how life is, and see how you are mentally. And it's a very easy, if you're out socially and people are saying, "Are you not drinking? You're no crack when you're not drinking." I'm going, no, for me, I'm having a dry May. So that, and then you can tell them in June you're having a dry June too, if you want to. But it gives you the opportunity to self-study and be self-aware of how you are without alcohol. Because when I see people drinking, I remember being like that, and I remember having fun, but I remember the following morning going, God, I wonder, are they okay? Did I say too much, or did I do too much, or,
Yeah.
But I'm not the designated driver in all situations now. I don't look after everyone. I just go when I want to go, you know.
Okay, very good. Look, news is coming at us like a train. It seems to do this every hour, folks. But Joannes, it was great to meet you. And,
lovely to meet you, Donald.
We'll tune in for the next one. Folks, we're going to be back with the news from Clonmel and Pat Murphy in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, welcome back to the final hour of Tip Today for this week. It's Donal Doyle sitting in for Fran Curry today, and we are joined now by our sports editor, Paul Carroll. Morning, Paul. How are you?
Oh, good, Donal. Yeah.
And you were on tenterhooks all morning waiting for the Tip team. This is when the cookie is about to crumble and stuff now. Cork again in the Munster Championship.
Yeah, it's unreal. The most wonderful time of the year was the back page of Nina Gargan this week, and that kind of sums it up. But yeah, Tip team named this morning. I'll run down through it. Rhys Shelley in goals. Full backline, Robert Doyle, Owen Connolly and Michael Breen. Half backline, Oisin O'Donoghue in for a first championship start at number 5. Ronan Maher captains the team at 6 and Brian O'Mara at 7. Midfield partnership is Willie Connors and Craig Morgan. Jake Morris, Andrew Ormond and Conor Stakelum in the half forward line. And I suppose the big news is Stephen Tobin is in for his championship debut at 13 alongside John McGrath and Jason Ford in the full forward line. So it's a team that has 13 of the 15 starters from last year's All-Ireland final, with Oisin O'Donoghue coming in to start and Stephen Tobin coming in with Sam O'Farrell and Darren McCarthy on the bench. They were the other 2 starters from the All-Ireland final. But the big news there is Stephen Tobin. You know, he's still under 19. He'll be playing under 19 with his club Carrick Swan this year. But he's kind of lit it up in the under 20 championship and had his chance against Watford in the league and scored 4 points from play and was brilliant that day. So
yeah, I'm a long way from a hurling expert, obviously, but even I've heard of Stephen Tobin.
yeah. So he comes in to start. It's a huge day for him. This is going to be an experience that an atmosphere he hasn't experienced before. There's going to be 45,000 people there, raucous atmosphere at Munster Championship. But he seems like that kind of character that will take it in his stride, and we wish him well. But
he's a big match man, is he?
Well, hopefully, yeah. So
yeah,
he had a really good game in that 2024 minor final. That's not that long ago. That was under 17, against Kilkenny when Tip were down to 13 men. But yeah, on the bench, Darren McCarthy, reigning young hurler of the year, is there. You have Noel McGrath, Sam O'Farrell, as I mentioned.
Issues or anything with Darren McCarthy, is there? Or
well, he did go off injured in the last league game against Kilkenny, so with a shoulder issue. So, but I think to keep in mind as well is that Tip are playing Watford in 8 days' time, so it's going to be a lot of minutes in the legs of these players. So I'm sure all of those things come into
a cautionary thing if he missed a bit of training or something. Yeah,
maybe. Yeah. So I'm sure he'll play some part anyway on Sunday. And for Cork, they have a similar team to the one that played in the All-Ireland final. They have 12 of their 15 starters. William Buckley and under 20 star Barry Walsh comes in to start for them alongside Tommy O'Connell. Declan Dalton, who started the All-Ireland final, not in the match day 26, and I haven't heard any rumours of injury, so that is a bit of a shock there. Seamus Harnedy drops to the bench, and the other change for them is, of course, Patrick Horgan, who has retired since the All-Ireland final. So similar enough teams, a few switches. Kieran Joyce has gone back to full-back. He would have been wing-back last year, so it's going to be very, very interesting to say the least, and I can't wait for it on Sunday.
Yeah, you have the big smile on your face here. Yeah, the excitement building. All right, is it a grudge match? Do Cork have a lot to prove for this, or is that too simplistic?
It's there's a lot on the game. It's funny, when you go into the first round of the Munster Championship, it feels like this is the be all and end all, and then if you win, you're buzzing going into the next round, and if you lose, you're still right, we can make this right. So while it feels like the be all and end all now, Sunday evening, both Tipperary and Cork will have a game the following weekend that they need to get ready for. So, but there obviously is a bit of history between the teams. You know, we were embarrassed by Cork a couple of times in the last few years, no more so than maybe in Thurles 2 years ago. But Cork will be very sore, obviously, from the All-Ireland final last year. So there's hurt on both sides. There's history between the teams, red cards in the games, and it's just set up perfectly for the start of the Munster Championship. So it's going to be massive on Sunday.
Yeah, it is going to be massive. Of course, you'll be bringing updates as well for our listeners from the Camogie game. But the real worry that, and I know the guards are nervous, that people should go early because you don't want to be late.
Yeah,
There's roadworks on lateral ends on the Nina, coming from the Nina side, and there's roadworks around Central Stadium that, even though it's not gone down to one lane of traffic, it is causing delays every day because the roads are narrower and there's a bit of machinery around.
And a lot of footfall traffic in that area around Central Stadium, so definitely leave early. I know I'll be coming from the Nina side and Latra and the works that are going on there, and there's Camogie and the Rag at 11:45 as well, the under-23, so there'll be a big kind of crowd around the Rag as well.
So that's extra traffic too,
you nearly want to be leaving now to be safe. But,
actually, there's no harm in that anyway. You wouldn't want to miss anything.
Exactly,
Yeah, get the sandwiches packed early and the bottle of fizzy pop at the Club Orange. Yeah, okay, that'll be great. We'll leave it there. Paul, you'll be giving us a big preview tonight on the show after 6.
Yeah, and extended across the line. So we usually go from 6 to 7, but we can't fit it all in 45 minutes. So it's going to be running till around 7:30. So we'll hear from Liam Cahill, Ronan Maher, all our analysts as well. So if you're looking forward to the game on Sunday, tune in 6 o'clock this evening.
All right, that's it. We all will. Thanks very much, Paul. That's great. Now, folks, we'll be bringing you your panel as promised, but I'm going to take a quick ad break after that hurling update.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Yeah, welcome back to the last hour again of Tip Today for this week with Donal in for Fran. And we're joined by our panel. I'll just go around the circle and introduce us here in order of left to right. We have Doctor of History, Conor Reedy. Good morning, Conor. How are you?
How are you, Donal? Are you well?
I'm not too bad.
Welcome back to Nina.
Yeah, well, it's great to get up to Nina. I don't mind to come this end of the county. I'm kind of based in Thurles in the middle, so I like to spread it around, as they say.
So you're running with the hare and hunting with the hound. Is that it?
Well, we try. That's kind of my job, isn't it? Also joined by former North Tip IFA chair Imelda Walsh. Imelda, how are you? You were here the last time I was here again.
Yeah, that's
You're
right,
in good
Donal.
form again
Yes,
today?
great, Donal. Delighted to be here, and good morning to all your listeners, and hopefully they'll enjoy our contributions.
Yeah, we'll see what.
And
we
if they're
get
not
up
happy,
to.
make sure and take us in and put us in our place and point us in the right direction if needed.
That's an invitation that I'm sure some people will take us up on. I'm also joined by Peace Commissioner Brendan Murphy. Brendan, you're not as familiar a voice to some of our listeners, but welcome to the show. How are you doing? How's your week been?
Good, Donal, and you're going to go easy on me today because we've two veterans here beside me, so...
Yeah.
Don't mind this, exactly,
We'll see
He just
how
wants
we
to
go.
slip it under the radar, exactly, and just bomb us out of it.
Yeah, we won't allow under the radar, but we'll try and keep it fair.
Brendan doesn't want any of those text messages Imelda mentioned.
Okay, lads, look, there's only one place to start with the week that was, as we sometimes call it. Look, I'll go back to the same order and we'll get a quick view from each of you and we'll tease out some of the bigger issues then. Conor, I suppose, where are we in the country now after the week that we've had?
We're after a head-spinning week or 10 days, aren't we, really? It's been just... It's since Donald Trump became president in America, and every day is like a week for the American people, or every day is like a week of drama. You know, we've had a serious amount of drama, political drama, in the past couple of weeks. We had some sort of... We've had a protest, I think, the likes of which hasn't had the kind of impact in the past that other protests have had now, maybe barring the water protests, which were obviously very effective back in the day. But this was the most impactful and dramatic in terms of the mad disruption it caused for people. And like it or not, and disagree with the tactics or not, and we can talk about that all day, it did have an effect. And it has gone on to have some sort of political consequences that are still playing themselves out, I think, right now at Fianna Fail and at Taoiseach level. So it has been, and all the time with all of that going on, the people, all of us in our different ways, are still experiencing the oil shock and the consequences of the oil shock. And I think perhaps we ain't seen nothing yet in terms of the oil shock.
Yeah, the fuel crisis. The protests have gone away for now, although we do still have more over the weekend around the county. But like the energy crisis, not only has not gone away, but it might be getting worse.
This is what I think. I think that all of us need to be realistic, and I say this not in any way critiquing protesters or any of us giving out about the prices we're entitled to and we're right, and we have the freedom to express that. But I think that the package we have seen this week is probably not going to be enough. Depending on where it goes with Iran, with Trump, and with all of the whole Middle Eastern geopolitics and the Strait of Hormuz that most of us hadn't heard of maybe a few months ago. Now we realise the importance of it, and so I think this could get a lot worse before it gets better, and there'll only be so much government is able to do when it comes down to it. We might find that out too.
Yeah, Imelda, how were you viewing it? Obviously you were involved in the IFA, who were part of the talks up in the Department of Agriculture. You would have seen similar, maybe not as high profile situations, but similar situations playing out in the past. Was it all handled as well as it could be from your point of view?
It was an absolute disaster from start to finish, because I suppose this isn't just about fuel. Okay, so it started about fuel, and the farmers, the hauliers, the contractors, the bus operators that came out was saying that they came out. But this is something that has been bubbling beneath the surface for quite a while. I suppose since the government came in, even the current government came into existence back in February 2025, this is something that has been simmering away underneath in respect of, we'll say, the homelessness, the housing, the health, education, everything else, cost of living and everything else, and no supports for people. So this was inevitable. This was going to happen, because you had a situation, I suppose, with anyone involved that need green diesel or white diesel to operate, we'll say that, and the costs become unaffordable. And it gets to a point, we'll say, when you can no longer afford to be in business, and government weren't listening, because, and it's to me, it's their lack of awareness of what's going on. They've lost touch with people on the ground. They're so far removed in their ivory towers to what's actually happening at ground level. I was listening this morning to Paul McAuliffe on Morning Ireland, and Sarah McInerney put it in quite well in respect to how he'd gone out, and he was just talking about he'd been out in his constituency, but she actually asked him, was he out meeting any of the protesters that he gone into Dublin, and he had to admit that he hadn't. And this is the disconnect, we'll say, where you have, we'll say, ministers and the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach far removed, and then you have the backbenchers going out, some of them, many of them, in particular in rural Ireland, going out, meeting the protesters, listening to them. But it expanded way beyond that, because you have a huge cohort of people that, middle-income Ireland, that can no longer afford to live. And you saw in the budget last year, there was no tax cuts whatsoever for anybody in middle-income Ireland, was saying that. And I heard Owen Reddy coming out from ICTU this morning in respect of the pay talks that are coming up now in June, and just like basically saying, well, we need something, and government are saying, well, we've given the 10 cents, but that isn't going to be enough in respect of all of the things that's actually happening. We're saying that, but there is that huge disconnect between the top and people, all the rest of society, and I think that was very telling in this. I think the Irish Independent had contacted all in government, and the only ones in respect of, we say, their support from Micheál Martin, and the Dublin TDs were the only ones that had replied in relation to their confidence. So that tells you that there's even in this discussion, there's a big urban-rural division, because I suppose rural TDs, by the fact that rural TDs are maybe meeting people more locally and everything else, and they know them and they're getting it in the ear from them in emails, telephone conversations, and all the associated points with that.
And Brendan, like, were you moving around last week? Were you affected by the protests? What did you make of it?
I wasn't affected by it, but I've been hearing from people that were. And look, I suppose the big thing here is the whole thing was managed terribly by the government. You know, they didn't listen to the people, and that's what drove people out to protest. And the people that were protesting were normal people, going about their daily business, that have been affected by the fuel crisis, the cost of living, which isn't going away. And you see, the problem with the fuel increase is it's going to affect everything else as well. The price of food, clothes, and as we know, the prices will never come back down again. So, I mean, they're trying to get government to listen, and I think that's the big problem. I wouldn't be in favour of another general election. I just want the government to listen, and I think a lot of people would be of the same opinion in that respect.
And do you think people would be happy with that? I mean, there's a lot of people, sure there's a lot of the protesters that were going further than calling for fuel reductions. They were calling for revolution and civil war.
Well, look, I suppose people are angry because they're under pressure and they're at breaking point. And the protest was, I suppose, the straw that broke the camel's back. It was people had no option, as they saw it. It was their livelihoods being affected by the price of the fuel. And they took to the streets and took to the motorways to block it up. I think the government have capacity to do more. What they announced last week isn't going to scratch the surface. It wasn't good enough, and people are angry about it. You have Fianna Fail supporters who are saying that they'll never vote for them again. And really, I think it was the attitude from Micheál Martin, the way he came out. There was a little bit of arrogance there. Instead of relating to the people and saying, I know what you're going through, we're going to have a look and see if we can do a bit more. There wasn't that. He hit out at the protesters. Jim McCallan's actions then with the army as well. That sparked anger amongst people, and I think it's not been dealt with right. And now you have this, we'll say, noise within the party that they're not happy as well. So look, I don't think it's going away. I think this is going to stay on the agenda. I think there's going to be more protests, and I think the government really need to look and listen to the people, what they want, and react appropriately.
Yeah, look, I'm not a defender of the government, but I know that they are definitely nervous that if they had come out and knocked 30 cent off the excise duty on fuel and brought it back down to, 190 or 180 or whatever, and tried to met, that wouldn't have been meeting the demands of the protesters. But if they did, we can still see future shocks in terms of prices that might drive us back up over €2 again, even with, and the last package cost $500 million. So if they'd, tripled that and made it $1.5 billion, we could still see the prices creeping up, and then they're in the same situation again.
But people are looking at the duty and the tax that the government are taking from the fuel, and they do see there's capacity there to take it. When you see Spain, I think the petrol is $1.39 a litre. Now, there's going to be sanctions from Europe for that, but the government are willing to take that chance. But our government are doing little or nothing. And that's what people are looking at, and they're comparing it to it. They look, we're shouting, there's a public outcry, there's a protest, and still we're not seeing the reaction we should be seeing, because people are suffering on the ground. And as I said, when the fuel goes up, the food goes up, the clothes go up, everything goes up in price. But if you reduce that fuel cost, it'll have a knock-on effect on the cost of the other things. And if people stop spending, if they start retracting and holding on to their money, that's going to affect the whole economy. So one thing could have a knock-on effect for everything else.
Yeah, and it's the idea that the government is making more money out of the higher cost, the higher fuel prices, that is really annoying people. But I think they're now. I think I heard Micheál Martin say that they're paying out more in these packages than than the extra profit they're going to make from the increases.
Yeah, they probably are. We're saying that, but it goes back. To be honest, in relation to communication and how well it was all communicated. And this is the problem. This is the problem mainly for Fianna Fail, was saying that and getting that message out. I was listening to John Fitzgerald from the SRI the other night, and he said we're walking into a fool's paradise in respect of where we're actually at in all of this. And you have to be mindful of that, and we have to be mindful of the past and the Troika coming in and literally taking over our country. And you have to support people, but at the same time, I suppose suppose what's annoying a lot of people is the massive waste that this government has overseen in respect of, would say, the bike shed, the little hut to mind themselves, the children's hospital, the dearest hospital in the world. And it's all of these things that are annoying people. It isn't that they've been prudent. It's the waste, the constant waste with this government, and no holding to account, and no whatsoever. And we saw even, I suppose, and for me, it was in relation to the heavy-handedness in which way the protest was dealt with, and overseen by Jim O'Callaghan primarily, we'll say, in that, in respect of it. And at the same time, then we see the people in respect of CAMS and all that went wrong there in relation to all those fabulous young people that have been sufferers. We see Tusla. We saw in relation to the hip operations and that were inflicted on children that didn't need it. And we don't see any of those people that oversaw that or were responsible for those actions being before the courts. We saw in the last few days the farmers that were at the protests that were charged in relation to dangerous driving, we'll say that, being before the courts, and further court dates to follow in respect of their actions. And people somehow see that there's a huge disconnect between, depending on where you're perceived position in society, that there's a different set of rules for everybody, but it comes down to communication. Like Micheál Martin had a chance last week, as did senior ministers, in respect to those protesters on the line, coming out, meeting with them. That's all they wanted, was to be listened. And I think this is what we're missing. Like, sometimes you mightn't be able to fix somebody's problem, but at least if you listen to them and everything else. And I think even within those organisations, because there were representatives like the IFA, like the Road Hauliers, like the Farmers Contract of Ireland, there were official organisations that would say that represent most of those people, but a lot of people within those sectors felt they weren't represented by their own organisations either. And it probably goes back to Athlone in January, when we saw nearly 25,000-30,000 people in respect of Mercosur descending upon that, and Micheál Martin at the 11th hour doing the U-turn in respect of Mercosur. And then you saw the whole Borbia, where people felt that was very unfair that somebody that was involved in, that had skin in the game, was chair of Borbia, and that, that there was massive conflict of interest. And, look at IFA, and walked away from that, and they were right to bring it, shine a spotlight on that, and we spoke about it on this programme. And like most people around the country will say in that, that there was, I do as I say, not as I do, in respect of it. So there has to be a holding of account, but there doesn't seem to be any holding to account if you're seen to be above a certain position in this country. And that's where the level of unfairness. And it's not just in agriculture. And I think everybody else, and you saw the support that the people in Dublin, the protesters, got from the ordinary people of Dublin, whether it was food, whether it was support, whatever it was, we'll say that. And for the most part, it was peaceful. And obviously, you're always going to have a right-wing element that's going to attach itself, and there's no point saying you don't. But for the vast, vast majority of people that were on those protests, they're ordinary working people like any of us here around the table. They get up in the morning and do your day's work and try to contribute and be a part of society.
I'm just wondering if there's a societal issue we have at the moment, because Ger Hyland, the IRHA leader, was on with Fran during the week, and he said, and it was put to him that, look, there's hauliers out there parked on the motorway that feel you don't represent them. And he said, we're crying out for people to come in and be part of the group and be part of the movement and take up a bit of work. And I know that there's groups all over Tipperary and all over the country crying out for people to get involved in committees and volunteer groups.
Yeah, it's a
People
massive.
would rather sit at home.
Oh, they would, exactly. Yeah, but that's and you are so right there, Donna. Like, you know what I mean? It's the more than, like we say, IFA or any farming or any lobby group or anybody that's in community will say that. Like, I know a number of years ago, in relation to something else, to an event that was happening on Christmas, and the question was asked in relation to a party event, what are ye doing? Like, not what are we doing? And it's grand to sit on the fence and be the hurler on the ditch and criticise. But, I suppose when I was county chair, you do your best to represent people and everything else. It's more like the CAP negotiations that are going on now, we'll say that. And I suppose in the last CAP, I suppose for a county like Tipperary, that would say that is hugely productive. We would have been disappointed to see a lot of money going west of the Shannon. You know what I mean? And we would have seen that the more productive farming was done here, but yet a lot of the CAP supports went there. And that would have been a bone of contention always on National Council historically. But that's when you're part of any group, would say. So it's easy to be the hurler on the ditch. And when you're part of that and you debate out your points from your county, but the lads from the west of Ireland likewise would do that. And then it's up to, we say, government here and European leaders in respect of where that money is actually going to go. But you have a far bigger problem because a lot of that money that came into rural economies is now going into military. It's going to be moving away completely from, we say, farmers and from food production, which is a huge concern as well.
Yeah. Conor, I was wondering, does your academic expertise stretch to economics at all? I'm wondering if we try and give everyone a little bit of a bump to help with the fuel costs. Are we not adding to inflationary pressures and making the matter worse?
One would imagine so. One would imagine that that's the danger, and that's for the economists whose names we don't know or ever hear within, say, the Department of Finance and other departments. That's the balancing act that they're probably trying to look at, and we do hear those kind of debates happen in other governments around the world as well, and in other economies similar to our own, where there's a danger of, giving too much too quickly, too soon, and then that has other knock-on economic implications. And that's not me arguing against it, because the problem is longer term. But I just wanted to go back on the question you just put there, Donal, about people like with the Irish Road Hauliers Association, Ger Highland, and talking about that and needing people to come in. I heard that interview with Fran. I mean, people are great hurlers on the day. I looked at the protest here in Nina last week. On the one hand, last Sunday, there was one Saturday and there was one Sunday, and good numbers came out, and fair play to people, And then I'm looking and I'm thinking, you know what? I've sat in this studio and others along with me many times as part of the Midwest Hospital campaign, imploring people to join us and to help us out on life and death issues. And I will say the support from Nina and North Tipperary was not there for us. And we were doing the best we can with a small handful of people. And the people did not come out for us. And we had to fight this alone. We had people from Clare in protests in Limerick calling for an A&E for Nina. Do you know what I mean? So I did feel a little bit bittersweet and I had a few mixed emotions about the protest last weekend. It seems that financial, where it hits your wallet, where it hits the pocket, where it hits the household income, great, everyone is enthused. But to hell with life and death, leave people for 48 hours, 4 days in a trolley, that's okay. So, yeah, I do think there's a big problem with that in Ireland, and I do think it takes a lot to bring people out. We need to be more French.
Yeah, is that not just human nature, though?
It is. It's Irish human nature.
Yeah, if it's not affecting me at the moment, people are too busy to worry about their neighbours when they're busy themselves.
But then, as Imelda implied there, people will be great when it does happen to them. They'll be great to go on social media, the great town hall that is, and they'll be great to give out. But where? Did you come to that protest? Did you come come to that meeting? Did you make that little effort to help us out? So did you put feet on the ground with us? And some people did, of course. It wasn't a total loss, but we, given the amount of, say, problems, we identified, and in a very scientific way, I have to say, over 4 or 5 years, and produced numbers and good stats to outline what was happening at UHL, apart from people's own empirical experiences. It just, the local support, I don't know whether it was political because they were afraid of offending their own political kind of, representatives that they supported, or they're seen as being disloyal. However, better late than never, I was glad to see the support that came out there, last week. As the lad said, the whole thing was a shambles from government perspective. I think there is a thing here historically. You're talking about the academic hat, but we have been governed by the same two parties since about the 1930s. One of them in and out of government. Now, you could say the same about America, the Democrats and the Republicans, the Tories and Labour in Britain. But I can only talk about Ireland, and we can only talk about Ireland here. At what point does a level of the ivory tower kick in, a level of the arrogance? And I do think Micheál Martin suffers with arrogance. I do think he does. I think Jim O'Callaghan thought he was going to have his big moment by mentioning the army and coming across like the strong man.
Rambo O'Callaghan.
That didn't work very well. So, but I think when you have to, we're not the healthy democracy we might think we are.
Yeah. Okay,
And also the people, one other thing.
Look, this brings me on to something that I have to ask you because of my position sitting here. So, what did you think of the media coverage of all these events across the country? And I'm not asking for Tipp FM. You can insult us if you like.
No. Yeah, well, everybody kind of says, though, to me, Tipp FM is the one place anyone can go. Anyone on all sides and make their point felt in ways that they couldn't on the national airwaves. I have to say, party would have to kind of feel it a bit for RTE now, not the big salary guys, but they had Patrick O'Donoghue ready to report them to Commission
O'Donovan,
This is why I'm asking. Ready to report them to Commission Naman. You have the far right saying they're all government shills in RTE and they're all in bed with the government. And so where does RTE meant to sit in the middle of all of that? I'm not defending them, but it's a tough one.
Patrick O'Donovan is a fairly bullish style of politician, and he was being sent out to fight the government's corner. And he came on here with Fran, he said much the same, that Commission Naman is going to be tasked with looking into it because he wasn't happy with how the media coverage went.
There was one thing though.
Is that something we can stand for a minister saying in an Irish
no, you
government?
Can't, because you see, Orban has just been, and I loved Ivana Bacik's line the other day.
It was brilliant.
Ireland's Viktor Orban.
Goodbye, Viktor Orban. Hello, Patrick O'Donovan.
It was brilliant, But I was a bit surprised when I realised that when Petula Martin, the Midwest correspondent for RTE, was broadcasting last week, and I know I was going to say the bad word, spilling rain, down there in Foynes. She was inside one of the units that had been brought in by the protesters. That kind of did. Just go in a car or something, or just, I
don't know, Conor. I wouldn't, she stepped in out of the rain with saying that, if we're ever going to move on with saying that, I wouldn't have seen anything wrong with her stepping in. It was shelter with saying that. And it was a peaceful protest in Foynes with saying that. I felt her interview from it, in particular with Neelis O'Connor, which you may know yourself, Donald, from Kerry. I don't know whether you do, you don't, with saying that. But, he came across, so in relation to it, he's so emotive in respect of why they were there and everything else. But I heard the interview with Fran, with Patrick O'Donovan the other day, and fair play to Fran. He really questioned him because Patrick O'Donovan has a way about him. I would have dealt with Patrick O'Donovan in my role with IFA in relation to the OPW and the flooding on the Shannon and everything else. And the level of arrogance, and I'm finished over 4 years, so I'm going back 6-7 years ago, and the level of arrogance of him is just unbelievable. And the same with Micheál Martin. But in relation to coming out saying the way that the coverage was unfair, the protesters might have said in respect of RT that they felt that maybe it was more skewed towards government than it was towards them. And then you have the whole thing that social media, which is now has taken over completely as the platform to go, the TikToks and everything else. And the TikToks are done in such a way, and you have a voice, and it's quite emotive in respect of it, with saying that. And we're nearly back into the time of the famine, and we say they've been driven from the land and all of that. And you're competing with, in all that space, social media has become so big in respect of Facebook, TikTok, Instagram and all of those platforms where it's actually played out. But I think in relation to any minister, definitely he's overstepping the mark in respect of if he thinks that in relation to any of you as journalists, how you do your job and how you report, and calling that into question and everything else. And that shows his lack of awareness of the issues on the ground.
Yeah, and he has history with this because Patrick O'Donovan was actually visiting Cashel Rugby Club the day that Ivan Yates went on RTE to defend himself in the wake of the presidential election and his role in that as a media consultant for Fianna Fail. And he took great joy in telling me, because I was there at Cashel Rugby Club, went along for the interview, and took great joy in telling me that he was absolutely going to go. He'd already been on to Commission Naman after listening to the interview, and he was going to root out all this corruption in the media because Ivan Yates said everybody was at it. Everybody's doing media consultancy gigs and going out to do interviews, and that's why he didn't think it was important that he announced it before he did shows on News Talk. That to me was a big story. Yes. We ran it at the time, and this is a minister for arts, culture and everything else going to take the media to task in what should be a free democracy. We're seeing that across
He
the
was
water,
revealing a
across
lot
the
about himself,
Atlantic. But I'm just wondering, like, obviously I have a vested interest in this, but Brendan, what do you make of that? Like, is the government here to tell the media how to do their jobs?
Absolutely not. No, and I think he's since withdrawn. He's not going to take it further. I think that came out there in the last few days.
I think Simon gave him a little slap in the back of the hand. Was saying that. I mean, the naughty step.
It's. I think it was very balanced, the whole coverage of the protests and everything else as well. I suppose from his point of view, it wasn't a nice watch. I mean, because the government pretty much caused this and didn't react enough and didn't respond to the public, and that's what caused the protests and what happened. So I suppose he was uncomfortable with the whole thing, and he was uncomfortable watching it unfold. But I mean, you can't say that's not fair, because the media are only covering what's in front of them. They can't control the narrative. This did happen. I mean, their reaction did happen, and it wasn't a pretty watch. But I mean, there's no point in complaining about it now, and they can't have an influence over it. Absolutely not.
No.
That would take from the integrity of media and coverage in the news.
Yeah, and look, I view my job as like at radio. What we can do well is bring people's voices. Your voices here today. We brought Michael Lowry yesterday. Voices that hopefully will affect how people think about things. And I couldn't get a voice that was dissenting from the protesters last week. I went up and down the town in Cashel and I spoke to all the businesses. I was wondering, was it affecting business? And a lot of them said it was a bit, because people were kind of avoiding town with the traffic. But I didn't come across one who wasn't at least sympathetic and if not supporting the protesters. So this is what we had to report on.
But Donal, and that's what was great about local radio up and down the country, because I was listening to other radio stations, because obviously I know people in different parts of the country from my time in IFA, and you're right in relation to people, businesses, because these are the same businesses that are struggling and struggling hugely. We're saying that, and for them, the people that were on the protest, they were their voice. While they were speaking in relation to their own sectors, it was speaking as a united voice in respect of all that was going on. Small businesses are on their knees. We've seen a number of businesses here in Neenah in the last 6 to 12 months closing down, replicated across the country and all of that, and nobody doing anything for them. We're saying that they're dying on their feet. I was talking to one business person the first week in February, and she said to me that she had a wonderful month of December and done really well, but anything that she had made had been gobbled up by a very, very slow January. And this was the first week in February, and it's continued to be slow. And you notice it, like, especially in the first half of the week, a lot of the coffee shops and businesses, they're struggling. It's slow. Like, there's somebody going in, having a coffee and giving an hour and a half talking to a friend over a €4 cup of coffee isn't going to pay the bills. The price that businesses here in town are paying on rates is absolutely off the walls. And if they get this money before they start on a Monday morning, there's a huge cost in relation to rent, insurance, rates, all of these things, we'll say, which is absolutely massive.
Yeah, and the cost of running the fridges in the
and
cafe,
all of the cost of doing business, exactly.
And heating the place, even if you're empty, so that when someone does come in, that they want to stay.
Yeah, and like, and if you're not busy, like that food you've prepared, we'll say, in that, and like everything is only a certain length of time. It's okay for the following day, but beyond that, some of those products you've made, are going to end up in food waste.
Yeah. Brendan, I don't know how political you are, but what do you make of Ryan O'Mara kind of standing up for himself for the first time? Surprising a few people within the party is what we're hearing. Yeah. But he's definitely made a statement this week.
The three amigos. Right.
The three amigos,
I completely agree with them coming out and making the statement. It's a pity it came a few days late. It should have been, I'd say, before the No Motion conference. But if there are issues within the party, I totally agree that they should highlight them. There certainly is a disconnect between people and the government at the minute, and that's evident in the way this has been handled. So I can relate to what they're saying, as in we can see it, but it should have been brought forward a couple of days beforehand. It would have made a bigger impact. Where it goes from here, they seem to be getting momentum, but then there's people coming in back in Micheál Martin now as well, saying that he's a good leader and everything else as well. I don't know. I think this isn't going to go away. I think it's going to build momentum. I think within the party, and they're going to have a sit down meeting. I think is it next week. They call a meeting with An Taoiseach. I know Ryan O'Mara. I know his office is busy. He does good work here locally. I know Albert Dolan from Galway. There's a friend of mine living down there, and he said he's very active. And I've seen Albert Dolan speaking to Dáil. He's quite young, but he's very, very ambitious, very good. And these are TDs, I suppose. They're TDs now, but they got involved in politics to make a change and to make a difference. They're young people. they know the cost of living, the effect it's having on everybody. They know the housing crisis. And I suppose they're trying to make a difference, but they're being knocked back. They're not being listened to. So I suppose they're questioning why they got involved and can they bring about change. So I can see where they're coming from, and I think they're dead right to bring out the statement. But again, I think they should have brought it sooner.
Okay, so that's interesting. Anyone want to pick up
Yeah,
on that?
Albert Dolan. Yeah, Albert. If we can all recall back to when the Dáil, this current Dáil came in, and Albert was the person, the youngest TD in Fianna Fail, that nominated Micheál Martin as Taoiseach. If I'm correct in saying that, I think I am. I suppose we'll say I can understand the lads in respect of it, because it is hard when you're sent out to do effectively the dirty work and try and sell whatever the government is, and in particular what has happened over the last week and all of that. I think Micheál Martin, while people, and going back to the Jim Gavin episode, and that's still very fresh in people's minds, and cost Fianna Fail, I suppose, near enough to €500,000 they lost over that election. Micheál Martin is going to survive, and he's going to survive primarily because of the European presidency coming up in the 1st of July. We'll say that. Also, 2 by-elections. I don't see anybody wanting to jump into that seat, because I think that the main parties are going to lose dramatically in relation to support. But isn't it ironic when we think about it that all of the attack and everything is focused at Micheál Martin, Fianna Fail, even though Simon Harris was Taoiseach, he's not getting, and it was the same with the presidential election, he didn't receive the same level of criticism that Micheál Martin is getting. We're saying that now, Micheál Martin, and for whatever reason, but I just see this morning both Jim O'Callaghan and Dara Cleary. Now, Jim O'Callaghan, obviously, like Jim had to come up because I suppose, and Dara O'Brien, Dara O'Brien had been quite, they have, exactly, they have. And I think yesterday at lunchtime I saw James Brown and James Lawless. Why they didn't endorse him, they certainly were kind of saying like, this isn't the time for this now or anything else. But like for Jim O'Callaghan, who would have been seen as the prince in waiting to become king, it's not, at this moment in time, it's not going to happen. He is hugely unpopular, so certainly he's not in any position to take that jump in relation to a leadership heave. While there's a lot of discontent on the backbenchers, I don't think I think Micheál Martin is going to be there as leader for the, but I think we'll say, and I was listening last night to some that engages in PR consultancies and worked with ministers and with Mary O'Regan, that he's probably safe until January. Like, this isn't gone away, but it's just going to be left there while we get over this, because this is too important. There's too many issues, we'll say, in that on the world stage. And
you don't want a newbie in for the
no, but at the same time they were saying,
face to be recognised,
exactly, you know, and I said this
is
before.
Is that a good enough reason?
It's not a good enough reason, but look at it. There's too much at play here. But as well as that, we're saying that, you know, that it's there to me, because I was talking to somebody yesterday that's a big Fianna Fáil supporter, and I just said to him, in my view, your biggest problem is there are no contenders there. You know this, and I smiled last night when I heard Niall Collins, and he was backing on Taoiseach again, and I thought back of his uncle Jerry Collins back at the time with Albert Reynolds and his plea on the 6-1 News in relation to the high heaves, and look at that, simmered for a good bit back at that time and everything else, and Albert Reynolds did eventually go on to become Taoiseach with this. But I think for the moment, but there's a lot of damage done within Fianna Fáil. There's a lot, we say, of, I suppose, mistrust in the backbenches. They're not being heard and everything else. We're saying that. But having said that, for the 3 lads to come out, it takes guts to come out, we're saying that, like, you know, because you might have maybe a few in the background pushing them, but at the end of the day, but like while they're being criticised now in respect of not coming out sooner, we say, like, they couldn't, they weren't effectively going to vote against the government if they were, we say, they were no longer going to be members of, we're saying that. And in particular for Albert Dolan and Ryan O'Mara as 2 first-time TDs to go as independents next time round, they haven't enough done on the ground to be recognisable, we're saying that, to secure a seat the next time round.
Okay, just come in, Donald, just on that there as well. I suppose their timing with the release of the statement, I suppose it would have been better if that had come a few days sooner with it, but there might be a strategy to it too, that I suppose they voted yes for the government, for the confidence of the government, and I suppose they gave Micheál Martin that vote, and they're probably looking for him now to listen to them. And I suppose the fact that 2 Healy Rays have left the government side, there's 3 more now on shaky ground. It might
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie. Tip Today, in association with Slattery's of Puckon, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, as ever, the chat is continuing here with the Tip Today panel during the break, and we're going to leave it alone. We've been getting a bit of criticism, actually, on the text machine there today, that we're too government, we're too one-sided, and I'm just looking through a couple of the messages here that there's a lot of people pointing out the price of kerosene, of home heating oil, and of fuel at the moment compared to places like Spain. I'm seeing comparisons. And if we just go back here, one more. I won't go through each of these, but we've had a few people in talking about how much a truck can consume on the way up and down to O'Connell Street, highlighting the difficulties that the protesters were bringing out. There's one for you, Imelda, here. You were welcoming all texts, you said. So why don't you ask Imelda, did she ever hear farmers saying they had enough? This person says, at 80, I never did hear it.
I know exactly. And you probably won't either. I'm going to be extremely honest with saying that. And that's me just speaking as the individual farmer with saying that. Yeah, you know exactly. Yeah. It's the nature of it.
Somebody has also texted in. John from Nina says we need to start thinking in a way led by civil servants, advertising government that putting constant increases on taxes, be it excise or otherwise, are only adding to inflation and end result higher costs on the cost of living. We also need to ask questions of the civil servants, and that's a very long message which is going off my screen. So John in Nina, the board of we're talking about wastage. Look, a lot of these messages are the same, guys. We're going to have to move on from the panel though, because it's not from the not from the fuel crisis, but from the governmental situation, because the root cause of the government of the government's current crisis is the situation in the Middle East and the Gulf, and we have, well, I don't want to put all the blame at one door, but there's one name that's looming large, and it's Donald Trump. We have a bit of good news. I don't know who's been watching, but we have what is a marginally holding ceasefire now between Israel and Lebanon, even though there was claims that Israel broke it already. But Conor, look, it's good to see something happening. Do we have any confidence that Trump can get the Iranians to a deal?
Oh God, it's so unpredictable. The Israelis, I worry about almost more than Trump in this, because it's the Israelis that led Trump to the door of all of this, and their government. I always say Israeli government and IDF as honest brokers in this. I wouldn't trust them as far as I throw them, and that's the truth. So we can only watch that part of the question, I think, day by day, hour by hour, because and Netanyahu seems bloodthirsty, and that's just I think the reality that we're all a hostage of in the world right now, and that the innocent people, non-militants, non-anything in Lebanon and these places, they're the ones that we should be thinking of in all of this. Now. There has been, again, like with our own domestic stuff, it has been utterly head spinning, as I say, for the last week or two alone, because Trump is obviously is so in over his head, and that's all very well. But the people surrounding Trump are always what should worry us all, I think, in all of this. They are people who are smarter than him. They are people who have more radical agendas than he has. And so it's very, very concerning what will happen there.
And you're not talking about the hegsets of the world. You're talking about the people behind the scenes.
There are people behind the scenes, and we have some very, very powerful kind of lobby groups in Washington on Capitol Hill that have been subjects of documentaries by people like Louis Theroux and others, and they're absolutely shocking the level of influence they have. And there's also these business interests that are tied up then with the people around Trump, like Jared Kushner and others. The guy whose name escapes me, who he always sends out with Jared Kushner, they're all doing their own side hustles on this as well, their own side deals. So it's very, very concerning. And I have to say, person of the week in all of this has to go to Pope Leo. I think what he has done is brave, is courageous. Pope Leo is an extraordinary. Trump has called him weak, and the actual nerve of him, the weakest, most slovenly, slobbering, incoherent cretin that ever took public office in this world. There's many of us Christians and faulty Christians in my case who might say, do you know what? Pope Leo has God on his side. That's what I believe. So he's stronger than any of them.
And look, for a man that Donald Trump called weak, Imelda, I'm just saying he's hit back again, Pope Leo.
Oh, yes, hit back,
He's just a quote from him now. Woe to those who manipulate religion and the very name of God for their own military, economic and political gain, dragging that which is sacred into darkness and filth.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I see this morning the American Order of Hibernia are out also in respect of it, in respect of the Pope, and in respect of supporting him, and that what his role is in relation to speaking out for the people, that the marginalised, for in relation to war and what's going on, and calling Donald Trump out, and even in respect of his absolutely scurrilous behaviour in respect of depicting himself as our Lord, was saying that while he was trying to say he was representing the Red Cross and all of that. And
but he does that all the time.
He does that all the time, yeah. He absolutely.
I love the one where he was put out, he tried to picture himself as a Jedi Knight, but he used a red lightsaber, for which any Star Wars fan will know. He's a Dark Lord of the Sith.
Exactly,
Brendan, we're running out of time, but quick word from you. Is Trump capable of taking on the Pope?
I think the Pope shouldn't involve himself really in Trump, because you're not dealing with a logical person,
Yeah.
And he'd have the best, he'd have the best intentions, and he's using his power in a good way. But you're not dealing with a logical person.
Yeah, but you have to speak out. But if you don't speak out,
in fairness, he wasn't directly referencing Trump at the first place. When Trump replies, he has to come back. I think it's probably fair enough. And popes historically, it's not like the Irish president. Popes have always involved themselves in politics.
And you Pete Hegseth out in the last day or so in relation to quoting scripture from apparently from the Old Testament, but which in actual fact it was Pulp Fiction, and Samuel L. Johnson was saying that. But in the same week was say like Donald Trump has pulled 11 million from the Catholic Association in Miami that help with say migrant unaccompanied children, and so this is an attack on the Catholic Church as well and everything else. And he does these things and says there's not as many now, so we don't need to be giving the money to them anyway. But this is what he does and everything else. But certainly, I suppose he's the most talked about man for all the wrong reasons.
Okay, look, we're up to 12 o'clock.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.